Greetings and salutations, everyone. Hello, hello. It is I, Trooper SJP, and this is the Academic Foxhole. How are you all doing? What is happening? What is going on? Way in hey the anime. Eve way at gale at way at wakes te ute at gale ang weo. Way in hey the anime. Ide I skays arani say. Oh man didi eshin pray we are utre you stay us we on rayo. Ewe every eat red leansley, of way at Briansley ute day. And we see the end of Oakley at the eye gara in the eye. We're in the money, we're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. Hey Hopatootie, bless your soul. I really love that rock and roll. Thank you for that donation. And I got to hear actual Ginger Rogers singing that song, and I haven't heard it in a while. Thank you. Woo. How are you all doing? Hopatootie, bless my soul. I really love that rock and roll. So hi everybody. How are you almost an hour late when everyone is supposed to be staying home? Well, because here's the thing. Just because people are staying at home doesn't mean that they don't want to have Zoom meetings with you all the time about all the things. Do you know, can I tell you something? I think I can tell you this thing. I'll tell you after this. The name game, come on everybody. I said now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name, they treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F or an M will appear. And then I say Bo at a B, then I say the name, then banana, fana, info. And then I say the name again with an F very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can rhyme. Krellin, Bobellin, Banana, Fana, Fofelin, Fifa, Momelon. Krellin. Hey Krellin, the Melon Felon, thank you so much for that resub. Woo! So this is what I wanted to tell you. Did you know that my department has decided to have faculty meetings every week now during our, Rissa, yes. During this crisis, apparently, we're now going to have faculty meetings every single Monday. Zoom faculty meetings, but we're gonna have weekly faculty meetings now because apparently, because there's a pandemic, we all need to meet all of the time. And just as a note, before this pandemic, we would have faculty meetings, departmental faculty meetings once a month, and then sort of university-wide faculty meetings once a month. So like we'd have a faculty meeting every other month, and then every once in a while we'd like have like a third faculty meeting sort of cropping in there for grad stuff or whatever. But yeah, so apparently because of this pandemic, they need to make sure that we're, that we're feeling okay. And so we're gonna have faculty meetings every week, and I don't even know what we're gonna talk about. Anyway, we had to have one today to talk about grad admission stuff, and I was like, really? It is Saturday, and I did not go to bed early last night. I mean, I went to bed early, but not last night. If you know what I mean. Anyway, it was ridiculous. I'm doing another stint in subscription land as a punishment for my melon felonies. I see it, Krellin. PH's crisis on what feels like infinite Earths. Oh, yeah. PH's, just tell them I'm not allowed to talk to you because of social isolation. I'm sorry. Goodbye. Yeah. Rissa notes that they are fascists, which I appreciate. Krellin says, ugh, administrators are the worst. They think everything is solved with meetings. I know. And here's the thing. Somebody on Twitter was like, hey, everybody's doing their meetings through Skype now. That's the best. I really hope that we adopt this all the time for, when we're offline. Like, this is just like the most convenient thing ever. And I hope we do this all the time. And I'm like, oh, I hope we don't. Because what I've learned about Skype meetings that people think that, or Zoom, is that once we start doing remote, they're like, oh, we can have more of them. Let's because it's a bit of an inconvenience to make people come into the physical meeting location all the time. But since we're doing it remotely, we can just have meetings all the time. PH says, butchers think everything is solved with meetings, and that's true. It is sometimes, but like finely cut meetings, sometimes diced meetings, sometimes ground meetings. I mean, I feel like, speaking of which, I have some ground pork that I bought quite some time ago and had frozen for a while, but then thawed out so I could cook it. But then I didn't cook it. But I feel like it's been in my fridge the whole time. I feel like I can still cook it. Well, I mean, I'm supposed to open it up and see if it smells good. Background music. See, you know what the thing is, Rissa? I think it is, here, I'll make it lower. See how that goes. I think the thing is that I think the background music in the start screen is much louder than all the sounds in the game itself, is what I think. And then I think, let's see. Krellin says, my longest job stint was working for a university at an off-campus quasi-related healthcare facility, but we still had university administrators. PH says, don't cook it. Don't cook it? Don't cook it. When in doubt, throw it out. But shouldn't I? Yeah, I just feel like I should probably just smell it and see if it smells bad. I'm gonna cook it. I'm gonna cook it up. I'm gonna open it up and smell it and then see how it feels. And here's the thing. Listen to me, everybody. This is really important. When I finish stream today, I need you to remind me that the first thing I need to do when I finish stream, the first thing is to go cook. So don't let me get distracted by things, because you know me, and like not go cook. So this is the goal. I'm gonna say, hey everybody, I'm going to leave the chat. My stream is over. Because that's how I end every stream, with finger guns. And then I'm gonna say, I'm gonna get off the thing. And then you should be all like, go cook right now. Don't pass go. Go cook. So this is not at 3. I would say like at 3:30. So at 3:30ish, you should all yell at me about cooking, and then I will go cook at 3:30ish. This is what. Hey Atomica. Hold on. There was a comment. Oh yeah, Javai said, "Are there even things to discuss every week?" When I was running a society at uni, we had weekly meetings, and we never needed to have them that often. Javai, no, I do not think that we'll have anything to say every week on a Monday. I think we will not have that much to say. And hey Atomica, I'm very excited. I'm gonna sing for you. But I just want to say, I just don't think we're gonna have enough to talk about every meeting. But everybody's working remotely, so I think everybody's freaking out. So apparently we're gonna have to have meetings, and I don't know what we're gonna talk about, and I think that is a little bit ridiculous. So, wait, Atomica, your interview went well? You know what that means. If there was a good interview, that means that I have to sing you, Clearly We're in the Money by Ginger Rogers in Pig Latin. I mean, I feel like that's what you do when somebody's interview goes well. And that's how I feel. And so, because we're gonna shout out your success. Airway and hey, the anime. Airway and hey, the anime. Ivoyat gale at way at way at way at way exte utet gale ang way. Anyway, and hey, the anime. The ice skates are on say. Oh man, the ADS and pray. We are a there you stay on way on rail. Eat whatever you eat, red lands lay, red brands lay, day. And when we see the endly or we'll clap the eye in the eye. We're in the money, we're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. Woo! Oh. Jer says, so the meeting is for anxious extroverts? Maybe? I don't know. I'm an extrovert. I suppose I'm just not anxious though. But like, Jer, it's a question. Like, is this really what we're gonna do? Atomica, my interview. Oh my gosh. I thought that you had a good interview. I was really excited about your interview, Atomica. I was like, you have an interview? And it went well. I'm so excited. But apparently you were talking about my interview and I wanted to go and celebrate you, and yet you were celebrating me. I feel like this is one of those moments where like, I cut off my hair and then you sell your watch and then you give me a headband and I give you a watch fob, but then we don't have anything. But then we find out that we still care about each other. I feel like that's what happened. This is there we go. The only reason, says Javai, our weekly meetings were fine was that it was before weekly games on campus, so we were heading out there anyway. And like everyone in the committee were friends, so we could just hang out doing random stuff when we didn't have anything to discuss. Atomica, you're great. Teleconferencing doesn't scratch the extrovert itch for all extroverts. Some need actual face-to-face meet space. This is true, Krellin. Celebrate good times, come on. It's a celebration. Oh, go ask the roommate something, Rissa. Neither of us have that first option. Wait. Oh, wait. Now we have. Now I got all my conversation threads all mixed up. So here's you know, there are a lot of people on Twitter laughing at extroverts for having a bad time, and also telling extroverts that they should shut up and not talk about their feelings because nobody wants to hear them. You know, I've been seeing that just a little bit too much. And I just think, oh, all right, well, oh, neither have cutting hair to sell. Oh, Atomica, yeah, that's true. So I suppose no watch fobs for us. And like, but I feel like, this is what I feel like. I feel like you're just not supposed to talk about your feelings if you're an extrovert. That's how I feel. That's what I mean, or at least don't talk about them on Twitter, because no one finds that, and by no one I suppose I mean introverts, find it interesting. But I also was thinking about this. I was thinking about it's a weird thing to say, but I feel like there are social roles that groups of people fulfill, right? And not just you as an individual, but like symbolically. So for example, there's like the good couple, right? The couple, that romantic pair that is like the good couple that the entire friend circle is really invested in them being the good couple and being together. To be fair to introverts, there's suddenly all these whiny extroverts invading their social spaces. Don't worry, I'm not hanging out with introverts. Like, I know that introverts do not want to see me or be around me, so I try to not be in their spaces because I know they don't like me. So I really try to avoid them because I know that they don't like being around me. So, like, I try to be very conscientious of introverts and not be in their spaces, not impose upon them, right? Because I know that, like, it's important that, because I know that introverts hate me and don't want me to be around. So, don't talk about them in spaces introverts consider theirs. Silly, I know. Right, yeah, and I know that the internet is introvert space, and so I just try not to be present. I try not to sort of, and I think it's mean, but I think it does come from years of extra pressure on introverts, sort of a welcome to our world. But the thing is, I don't put pressure on, you say that, Trooper, but here I am. Well, but I've not invaded your space, Jer. Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't come to your house, and I do try to, you know, not go into introvert spaces and be present. And like, I hope that like being on Twitter is okay for me to be there and sort of make posts, because I try not to interact with people that I know that are touchy about being interacted with on Twitter. You don't put pressure on introverts, and you're also not whining about being nice and extrovert on Twitter, so it's fine. I suppose that's true. Hello, Rachel B67. I suppose, but I mean, I think the message that you get is that if you're an introvert, it's okay to complain about your life, but if you're an extrovert, it's not, right? Like and this is like going back to this idea about people have different social roles, right? So like, I think that the message that I get when I look at the internet, ooh, somebody's watching me and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel that somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? Nerdily, thank you for the follow. It is nice to see you here. Hello, welcome in. We're talking about introverts and extroverts at the moment. You haven't, but I've had extroverts my entire life trying to pressure me to social situations I wanted to do with. Oh yeah. So here's the thing, but what I have learned from the internet is that if you are an introvert, you're allowed to complain about your life, but if you're an extrovert, you're not, right? So, this is what I've learned, because there's, and also not just Twitter, but also various forums, right? That extroverts are the oppressors and bad and should shut up and not speak, whereas introverts are the oppressed and should therefore take up all the space. This is what I've learned. And, you know, apparently that is just what it is. I think specific introverts who say that have in the past felt like they were not allowed to complain and are now projecting. Maybe. You don't, but extroverts is the default. There's a huge amount of defaultism going on there that a lot of people don't see. Extroverts aren't allowed to complain about their lives in the same way as white people aren't complain about theirs. I mean, this then assumes that extroverts have power and oppress introverts, and we'll have to sort of think about. I suppose we have to sort of ponder whether this is true. I mean, because maybe it is true that extroverts have it fine and are great and have no problems and have all the social and political and legal power and structural power, and then oppress introverts. I don't know if it's true. Like, I'm not convinced that is true, but I don't think you're allowed to say that. Well, so if it is true that all of society is built to structurally oppress introverts, then I suppose it's true that the extroverts, when they're in pain or suffering or being mistreated or being treated poorly or are suffering from depression or social isolation, should just shut up about it and not talk. So that's it, right? I mean, and I think that, but what I think is interesting about this, is going back to this idea of social roles, is that I was thinking about, like, to finish this thought, right? The happy couple, right? The happy couple. So there's that couple that you might have in your relationship that is the happy couple, that everyone is invested, the friend group is invested in them being the happy couple. And so it becomes very difficult for that couple to have problems in their relationship, because the social function the social function they have is as being the happy couple. And so with that being their social function, it becomes difficult for them to have relationship problems, right? Because their relationship now becomes a touchstone and something symbolic for the larger social group. So then what becomes interesting, right, is that I think that not all extroverts, but I think extroverts often have the social function of being the happy person in society, right? Because extroverts, they're happy. So their function is to sort of like basically never never be sad, never have problems, never express those problems or feelings, because their job is to be the life of the party, the happy person. And so because they're social, and also sometimes the beat 'em up for introverts. And so if their social function then is to be the happy person who never has problems and is always like with it, the one to sort of, you know, take on other people's complaints, that becomes, but I think that not all extroverts are happy, but the question is whether or not but the thing is, if your social function, PH, is to not tell people your problems, right? Like if you're the strong one, then you can't, right? And I was just thinking about the ways in which the internet reinforces the idea that extroverts should not be talking about their problems to other people, especially introverts. And I think that, I think that's just kind of what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that's just sort of life. Krellin says, the good couple really, really, really needs friends outside that group that thinks of them as the good couple. That's true. Because they need to be able to vent without fear, because venting is a healthy part of a relationship. Yeah, and I think you have a tendency to take ideas to the extreme. No one should ever be told they can't share their personal issues. But Vulpes, people do all the time. People are told this all the time. And I think this is, I mean, like, should and are two different things, right? That's the thing that I'm thinking about Vulpes. That whether or not things should be this way is different than whether or not they are this way. And should that couple be forced to be the happy couple in their friend group? I don't think they should, but my point is that they often are. And should extroverts feel like they're not allowed to talk about feeling lonely and sad? No, I don't think they should, but I think that they are. And so I think that there is, I think there's a difference between what should happen and what does happen. Like, we also shouldn't have classism, but then we do. And I also think, you know, if people don't want to hear your problems, you probably shouldn't be telling them their problems, because that's non-consensual venting, and that's no good. You know what I mean? Krellin notes that that he is the strong one for most of his peer groups, which must be very terrible being an introvert, right? I think that must be really awful, because people might want to vent to you, and that may not be a good thing for you because, you know, introvert. Krellin says, not all people who are present as extroverts actually are. That's true. And the same with introverts. It's not the simple binary we tend to treat it as being. And yeah, and also, really, but again, people are using these terms in ways that are not their actual definitions, right? Introvert just means that you gain energy by being around people, and introverts means that you gain energy by being alone. And extroverts, their energy is drained by being alone, and introverts, their energy is drained by being around people. Introvert and extrovert is not a stand-in for your social skills, right? There are introverts who have great social skills and are amazingly at social skills, and there are extroverts who are completely socially awkward and shy. So, like, being socially awkward is not the same thing as being an introvert, and having good social skills is not the same thing as being an extrovert. Those things are not the same at all, as Rissa points out. But people tend to use them that way. People tend to use these terms quite imprecisely, and so people sort of tend to sort of imagine then. People tend to imagine, right, that, oh, that person's got great social skills, they must be an extrovert, but that actually just may not be true at all. Gervais says, I do think society favors extroverted tendencies, at least professional sectors of it. I do also think there are parts of society in which a more introverted style is preferred, but I would argue that the areas that favor extroverts are considered more important generally. Have a limited basis for that, though. And of course, the question is, do we mean extrovert or do we mean social skills, right? Because again, as Rissa points out, those actually are not the same thing. Nerdly says, yes, I struggled a ton being the with it person with my family in the circumstances of my mom's death. It's a terribly heavy role, yeah. But it's also one where you're not allowed to complain about it. And should you be? No. Rissa just said the thing about, I probably passed this up. Yeah, Nerdly, I know that there's a difference between a should and a what is, though. Atomica says, well, I think it may be that extroverts possibly don't know the structure of complaining and discussing the introverted landscape they are now in, like chucking a stereotypical jock into a chess club. Now, this does, Atomica, this does then take as fact that the internet is for introverts and it's the introvert space, and extroverts are guests in the internet, right? That the internet is not a space that if you are an extrovert and you're on the internet, you are an outsider to that space and it is not your home, and that you are a guest there and should always be on your best behavior because the space belongs to introverts. Do we want to say that the internet it belongs to introverts and extroverts are interlopers there? And maybe we do want to say that. It's just a question. Rissa says, I also think there are some extroverts who aren't sure what to do with their sad because they're used to being more outward. Yeah. All K names look alike to you. No. But I don't think that extroverts tend to be encouraged to express sadness. Volpa says, but society tells us no one should tell anyone their problems. The difference is introverts generally don't want to tell other these things, whereas extroverts want to share with everyone. I cannot tell you apart. Oh, I will see you, Nerdly. See you later. It's interesting because I think that there's sharing and sharing, right? I think that, I don't think extroverts are encouraged to share their sads. Share, like, happy life of the party, yes, but I think sad's less so. Whereas, like, the introvert being sad isn't accepted, and maybe introverts are not sad, but the sad introvert is an accepted trope, right? So you're like, oh, sad introvert. Javai says, I do think it, to a degree, social skills that are valued, but like many things, you're always expected to do more, so being able to interact socially for longer periods of time is a benefit. Krellin says, I'm having flashbacks to the COH forums, City of Heroes, where I was one of the loudest advocated for solo-focused play, and everyone was like, you're so noisy, how can you claim to be an introvert? Well, but a forum is not the same thing as in person. People don't know what introvert means. People do not know what the term introvert or extrovert means. Like, introvert is not the same thing as not being loud. Like, you can be loud and be an introvert. You can have great social skills and be an introvert. You can be the life of the party and be an introvert. You can also be really quiet and be an extrovert, or have social anxiety and be an extrovert. They're just, like, not the same thing. Yeah, Krellin says, I spent a lot of time explaining introvert doesn't mean I hate talking to people. It means talking to you tires me out and sometimes I need a break. Yeah, I mean, so there's like a weird thing about what we think extrovert and introvert is. And, right, and so, right, this idea that introvert means that you have social anxiety and cannot be around anyone ever. And that if you, and of course, but that's not what it means, right? That isn't actually what the term means. But of course, this also then gets framed as, so the conclusion is everything is made up and the rules don't matter. I don't think that, well, things being made up doesn't mean they're not real. You know what I mean? It's just that we have to sort of understand how these things work better. Atomic says, not the entire internet, but there are probably more extroverts that are used to going out and being social are now stuck at home more, so they have more time to explore online life for social interaction. Like an introvert who likes quiet, lonely, in real life activities instead of being online isn't as open to exploring online society either. Maybe extroverts should just get off the internet. If the internet does not belong to extroverts, if the internet is not a free space open to everyone, if the internet is a space that belongs to introverts and that extroverts are doing harm by being there, then maybe extroverts should not be on their internet. because it's important not to do harm to people. You know what I mean? And like, I just worry about doing harm to people. Hey, Falcon, I worry about doing harm to people, and I worry about respecting people's space and boundaries. And if it is true that the internet is not a free space for everyone, but is a space that belongs to introverts, and that extroverts' presence in the internet harms introverts and causes them distress, then maybe they shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And if, like, I mean, because here's the thing. If an introvert posting on the internet is doing active harm to introverts, if an extrovert posting on the internet saying, hey, I'm on the internet, does active harm and harms people, then they should not talk. You know what I mean? Like, they just shouldn't be there. Because I just think it's not good to harm people. I will say again from personal experience, you will find more extroverts among trolls. And the idea that saying any group can't be allowed to communicate is just wrong. Well, but if their communication, but here's the thing, Vulpus, we say that all the time. We do say that certain speech is not allowed. And we do say, hey, you should not talk in this space. Like, we do it, right? Do you know what I mean? We do say that some spaces are like not for you. Like, that is this space is a therapeutic space. Like, you can't just have like randos like walk to an AA meeting and start talking about rando stuff. Like, those people are not allowed to speak there. And so, like, we do have, like, there are spaces that are meant for groups of people to talk, and other people should not talk in those spaces. And the question is the internet one of those spaces that is not a space for extroverts to talk? You know what I mean? Unless they're given specific permission to. I feel like the internet is as divided as the rest of the world, at least now. Early internet, not as much. And there are extrovert-focused spaces and introvert-focused spaces. I don't think it's true, says Jer. I think more extroverts often ignore boundaries when entering a new place because they don't understand an introvert's boundaries. Krellin says Twitch is far more extrovert-focused, for instance. Twitter is introvert-focused largely because of how much control you have over your feed and follows, which is why all their changes are annoying. Everyone can say words, it's specific words that are bad. I'm sure there are specific things that extroverts could say that might be harmful. They should talk, but maybe avoid saying whatever these harmful things are. Well, some of the harmful things is that they talk about their feelings, PH. So like, I personally do not talk about my feelings as an extrovert. And I knew somebody who was like, hey, how are you doing with social isolation? I was like, I'm fine, right? Because I know that one of the things I'm not allowed to say is what I'm not allowed to talk about is how I feel about social isolations, because I will be ridiculously mocked and I will be told that I'm harming introverts by talking about my feelings. They'll be like, shut up, extrovert. And I was like, okay, so I don't, right? Like, I'm just not going to talk about it because I know that that is not welcome. So I don't, which is fine because I understand that that's what it is. But this is not truly an open space. But the idea of closing off anything completely like the internet as a total is a bad idea. Like saying no black people can have books. Well, I mean, but again, I haven't seen this extrovert shitting you're talking about, so I don't really have a good reference for this conversation. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of it on Twitter, but I've got a lot of very spicy people on my Twitter at the moment. I'm sorry you feel like you can't share your feelings, Trooper. Thanks, PH, but it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's... I don't need to be attacked by people on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? I do not need to be attacked by people on Twitter at all. That is not a thing that I need. I don't need to be yelled at. So that is life. Rissa says, I hope when we're being chatty tomorrow, you don't feel the need to self-censor in a very small game family. Ooh. I think we can all agree that you can talk about your feelings here. No, I don't, like, yeah, I don't think that's true either, PH. I can talk about some feelings, but not other feelings, because there's an appropriate time and place for everything. And that's the thing I think is important to sort of like ponder, right? Like there's a time and a place. Yeah, see, I mean, Krellin is correct. I always self-censor. Because there's a time and a place for everything. There's some things you say in this space that you wouldn't say in other spaces. So, for example, in this space here on my stream, there are things that I will say that I will not say on Twitter. And in my Discord, there are things that I'll say on my Discord that I will not say on other people's Discords. And there are things that I will say in some spaces and not other spaces. But I just don't think you can say everything in every space, because I feel like that can be rude and inappropriate. Do you know what I mean? That's all. Same Krone. I've seen some introverts trying to throw the connection of isolation into how introverts feel about social spaces, and that might get misinterpreted. Well, I don't want you to feel bad, so do whatever you think achieves this goal. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely always willing to hear you out. Oh, but again, yes, right? Like you just, keep stitching, Falcon. Because Trooper's Life has taught him the extreme importance of compartmentalizing, vowed lessons for his life. Yeah, but also, yeah, I mean, also people don't want to hear things in all spaces. Do you know what I mean? Like there are some spaces who want to hear certain things, other spaces they do not want to hear certain things, and you saying those things would be strange and inappropriate and off-putting. It's like when you're at a friend's birthday party and everyone's like, it's a birthday party, it's your birthday party, and somebody's like comes in and is like decides to start going on like a 15-minute rant about how they hate their father or whatever, and you're like, this is not appropriate. Like, I don't even, like, who are you? Like, this is way too, like, I don't, and like, you don't even know who they are, right? Like, that is wrong time, wrong place. Like, as PH says, I don't want to hear a stand-up routine at a funeral. Right. Right. And like knowing the right time and the right place for things is important. And I just think about like what the ways in which save it for after the party. Yeah, save it for after the party. And then it's like about like trying to calibrate, like trying to figure out in this particular space, what are the things that are appropriate for a person to say. Right? Like who's in the room, right? It's about reading the room, right? Do you know what I mean? Like you have to be able to read the room, and the places that it's about reading the room. Rissa says, I tend to keep my feelings to myself, and there are topics that are no-go with people I work with versus friends versus family. Exactly. I can understand here, this is an open space that anyone can come into. This is true, Volpez, right? Like this is an open space, anyone can come into here, but it's also a space that there's a group of people who don't come into here, so there's some things I can say here that I wouldn't be able to say in other spaces, because this particular community is one that allows me to share some things that like other communities would not. Do you know what I mean? Krellin says, let me tell you something about birthdays. Birthdays are bullcrap. My father beat me every birthday. I learned to dread my birthday, never celebrate one. Anyway, happy birthday. Have a good one. I've got whiplash now. Oh my gosh. This reminds me of this really super hilarious sketch that I love very much, and I will tell you about it in a second. Atomic says, well, you say what you're comfortable with, but being introverted will never be a reason for me not to want to hear your thoughts. But Atomica, you might be drained and not comfortable doing that. You know what I mean? Like you may be in a space where it's not healthy for you to hear my thoughts because you're like, you need super introvert time. Do you know what I mean? Like you might, that might be a moment for you. Like keeping distance between professional and personal social media platforms. Oh yeah. I once dated an introvert. The relationship did not last very long, who needed me to not talk to her. Basically, in order for her to feel comfortable as an introvert, I couldn't do things like say, hey, how was your day? Or how are you doing? That was like too much for her. Like asking her how her day was oppressive to her. So basically, and I certainly couldn't talk about how my day was going because that was too draining. That was too stressful for her. So like for me to make her safe and comfortable and healthy, I had to basically not talk to her at all, which was very hard for me to do. And you could say it's because I'm an introvert, extrovert, but also it's just because I do like to know how the person I'm dating is doing. So that, she worked in a social job, didn't she? Something public facing. She did. So basically we couldn't communicate. Jer says, to be honest, I skipped City of Light last night because I just kind of needed to hide for the night. And like, I think that's totally valid. That's all. Volpa says, no offense, Robert, when I'm that drained, in that drain time, I will not be watching. Good. I am so glad because that's like really important that like, I feel like that's important. Krellin says, if I'm in a Twitch chat and you drain me, that's on me for coming here without energy, not on you for talking in a talkie space. Fair. We have to be careful, right? Yeah. I get why she was like that. I also get why that makes it a relationship that wouldn't work for you, right? And in the end, we had to break up because not ever knowing how she was doing was not workable for me in the end. And I tried for months dating someone that I couldn't ask how they were doing or know how they were. Like that was hard. I did it though. I did it for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, 5 or 6 months, about half a year. I did it for about half a year, where I would not talk to her at all. And that just made me sad in the end. But I mean, it worked out. It worked for her because I've got good discipline. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's discipline. And so I was able to do it, and it worked for her because, you know, I've got good discipline and I do care about people's feelings. It was just in the end, it didn't work out. It just didn't work out. But Volpez, it's a relationship it was the kind of a relationship that she needed, right? I mean, that's the thing. She needed that kind of relationship as an extreme introvert, and it was incompatible needs. But in the end, she ended up dating another introvert and they didn't talk to each other, but they you know, they sat in the same spaces and they watched sports. And sat in the same spaces, and it worked out in the end for her. So that was excellent that she was able to find a person that matched her needs happily, and that was lovely. But you know, my point being that I have done it, but like I do care about making sure that I do not it can also be a matter of scale too. I dated someone so introverted I came off as an extrovert in comparison. You know, because I think about the ways I was modding a community for a couple of years with a bunch of introverts, and they talked a lot, right? And one of the things that they framed, this was my nerd dude dating advice website that I was a mod for, and you know, there was like a lot of discussion there about a lot of discussion from introverts about extroverts, and what I did in that space was I listened, right? Like I listened to what introverts had to say about extroverts, and what they generally said in this space. Ooh, hello, Kalan. Come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you candy. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you everything. Welcome in, Kulan. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you for the raid. Come on over. We're talking about introverts and extroverts. I would say anyone who dates you would need to be the kind of person who keeps you talking longer than you mean to, like the foxhole. Well, but it's also like you come to the person, right? Let them yes, my neckbeard site, Jer, my neckbeard site. And there's like a lot of discussion, and I always think it's important to listen to people, you know what I mean, when they're talking to you about things. And there was a lot of sort of framing as extroverts as bad, not different, but bad, right? I do think part of the problem is at least it's a lack of understanding what the term means. Oh, definitely, Shavai, and a lack of understanding the other end of the spectrum. I am dating the foxhole. The foxhole, you're the best people to date. And what's interesting is that like Nick Precise would not be the best place to get a diverse sampling, but I think it was important to hear how they were feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like I think it is important to know how they're feeling, right? If people are telling you their pain and their feelings, I think it's important to listen to them, and because you have to know they're people like they. Like for them, they felt, those are feelings, that extroverts were bad people because what they did was steal your energy, right? That they stole your energy. They come into your space and they steal your energy. And I think I was like reading that, I was like, well, that is not what I'm intending to do. Like, I do not intend to go and steal people's energy. But intentions are not the same as impact, right? And Volpez, you will say again, saying any one group is bad is wrong. Thank you, Krellin. Nazis are bad. I'm not wrong. Thank you, Krellin. That's where my mind went. Krellin, mind meld. See you. But I suppose what I'm just saying, don't prescribe that to introverts so much as to neckbeards. I suppose. But I do think it's like, you know, it's a thing that I think about. Like I think about that I have read a lot of introverts really talking about the pain they get from being around extroverts and being in an extroverted society, and the ways in which they are oppressed by being in an extrovert society. And, you know, I think about that a lot. I think about, okay, right, are my introvert friends suffering? What do I need to do to help ease their suffering, or certainly not add to it? And, you know, what can I do to be... It was the aughts. It was the aughts, Krellin, not the 90s. It was the aughts. Aughts. You know, and so like I you know, I think about like what can I do to make sure that I am not adding suffering to people who are marginalized, right? So if we think about introverts as a marginalized group that's oppressed, and I'm of the oppressor class, then what can I always have to be thinking, what can I do to make sure that I am not furthering the oppression of introverts, that I am not causing their suffering, that I am doing what I can to make their lives better rather than worse. That is a thing I always think about. Krellin says, like, back when the web was small and there wasn't YouTube and Facebook social interaction 100% of the time, Facebook and streaming, the internet was very much the introvert's haven, and society was focused around extrovert activities. But 30 years later, things are very different in that regard. So it was the aughts. It's like 15 years ago. Javai says, I think some people tend to think of anything less than wanting intense social interaction 100% of the time as an introvert. So extroverts closer towards introverts consider themselves introverts, and they might not want that much interaction. So their made-up idea of extroverts is bad for them. As an introvert, I think giving space to be alone and some out is important. Oh, yeah. I mean, I had a friend visiting in town who's a big introvert, and I was like, hey, you're visiting in town, you're gonna stay at my place. I've set up a whole entire room for you that you can just go in there and like shut the door, and I will not interact with you in any way, right? And like also, anytime you need introvert time, you let me know, and I will go into the room if you need the big space. Like I really try to zone out is important. I really try to make sure that when there are introverts in my life, that I do not further their oppression, basically, right? Because I feel like that's, I just feel like anytime you're a person with privilege, I just think it's really important to make sure that you are not furthering the oppression of people over whom you have privilege, or in contrast with whom you have privilege. And so I think about that a lot as a person who has various vectors of privilege. Krellin says, I can tell you there are definitely times I need to talk to people and get drained, because being absolutely chock full of energy is just as exhausting and damaging as running on empty. Yeah, yeah. And so it's just one of those things, right? Like I just think that if we take as a true statement that extroverts are oppressors and introverts are the oppressed within our society, then I just have to be really, really mindful of the things I do, when I do them, how I do them, and right, because otherwise you're not, otherwise you're being a jerk. I was always considered the odd diva when I had enough and tried to get away. I'm so sorry, Ice Bunny. I am sorry that you, I'm sorry that extroverts oppressed you, Ice Bunny. I apologize for that. Javai, I also think people blame extroverts for behaviors not fully related to being an extrovert as being bad. Like, there are draining interactions that are draining not just because they are social, but because they are social as well as, let's say, emotionally draining. They're considered extrovert behaviors. Oh, yeah, I do think that's true, Javai. I think that's also true. Krellin notes, like when you leave your battery plugged in at full charge and it burns out and loses capacity. Oh yeah. And I think, right, to say, right, in this space, I think there are a bunch of things that are, well, no, I shouldn't say that. I'm not allowed to say that, so I won't say it. Yes, as an extrovert, I don't think I'm allowed to talk about extrovert misconceptions. Sort of, if we think about extroverts being the oppressor class over introverts, I cannot make those. I cannot make those conversations. And I'm sure experts get this too. They'll probably need to withdraw and introspect sometimes because they're running too hot and need to cool down. I think a lot of experts have a bad time now with the distancing and stuff. That's what we were talking about, Ice Bunny, and about how that it's not particularly welcome to complain about it. By your own reaction to that statement disproves it. You are allowing the idea of introverts oppress you. No, I by your own, you're allowing the idea of introverts oppress you. No, see, Vulpes, I think it's different, right? Because we're talking about structural oppression, right, as opposed to individual oppression. And the argument that is made is that introverts are structurally oppressed by extroverts, that it's not just like an individual person, right, but that introverts structurally are disadvantaged in society. They have a harder time getting jobs. They are socially expected to do things that are harmful to them and that hurt them, and that they are treated poorly as a group by society, right? So that society as a whole is run by extroverts who then shape society to be made for extroverts, and that if you are an introvert, you are going to have a harder time in your life, right? You're going to have a harder time structurally. And so that and so that with this idea that there is a class of people who have more privilege and who has structured society in a way that ends up being harmful to introverts. In that moment, as an extrovert, there's some things you probably should not say, because you are not helping anyone, right? You know what I mean? Like, you're basically furthering oppression if you do that. I will say, says Krellin, that my feelings on the oppression of extroversion have changed over the past decades because I actually think society has shifted. Well, that's interesting. So much of modern life is based off of asynchronous communications rather than synchronous now, which is a huge cultural shift. Like this, why would you call someone text me, is oppressing extroverts. But if extroverts have power, then they're not oppressed. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the difference. Atomica says, well, hearing that perspective would be interesting, and I think it's fair to say we trust you present ideas with more intelligence and or logic, even if it's from an oppressor perspective. Yeah, but I think you have to think about, like, what is your speech doing when you put it out in the world? At one time, sure, but not in the last 5 to 7 years. The rise of nerd culture and the explosion of tech jobs has moved us much more away from that idea. But I wonder if that's true. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if that's true. And let me circle around to a different sort of status. Nerds, for example. People are like, oh, nerd culture is a popular thing, so basically nerds are not oppressed anymore because nerd culture is now the thing. But I'm not certain that the explosion of nerd culture means that nerds are no longer oppressed. What I think it means is that popular people now like nerd stuff. But I don't think that means that nerds are no longer oppressed. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, or at least let's say being bullied. Like this idea that, like, oh, now that like Marvel movies are like the most popular movies, comic book nerds are not going to be bullied. Like, I feel like they are still going to be bullied. It's just that, like, the bullies will now also read comic books. But I don't think that just because nerd culture has exploded means that nerds aren't still marginalized. Do you know what I mean? Like, ooh! Come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you candy. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you everything. Other Doc! Hey, how you doing? Welcome in. We're talking about introverts, extroverts, nerds, changes in society a little bit before we play the other worlds. Yeah. So Krellin says, I mean, the corridors of power are still extrovert focused, but I'm not sure everyday life is. It's a good question. Bullies have learned to read. It's a good question. Like, I imagine even in the tech industry, you have to go on job interviews. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to go on job rating. Here, wait, other Doc. I've got a raid message for you. Here you go. Wait. Here, I've got a raid message. This is your raid message. Boom. But I want to do it with emotes. I wish the raid message would actually give us emotes. I don't know why it doesn't. It makes me a little bit sad because I wish it did. Boom. I've been dealing in the corporate world for the last 20 years. Yes, there has been a shift in the general viewpoint showing up. Oh, that's good, Volpez. Iceman relates more to nerds than non-nerds, right? Oh. Because Nightbot is not a sub. Oh. Nightbot? Nightbot, why are you such a slacker? Huh. That's really interesting, right? Because I was thinking about, right, this idea, like, think about all the things that we have in society that are structured for people who have certain skill sets. Like, I think there's a way to give a bot a free sub. Huh. I wonder about that. Like, I can gift a sub, but it is not free. I wonder. I have to think about that. Yeah, like I think about like job interviews. A non-sub could write, and I'll just show up as the words and not the emote. I just learned a new thing. This makes me happy. Because I'm out of work now, so Hrothgar, go last, give Subway for. Hey, by the way, you know what we're gonna do? That's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna we're gonna put the game on. We're gonna put it on, at least, is what we're gonna do. There's gonna be we're gonna put it on. At least we'll see. I'm not sure how much I can weigh in, to be honest, says Shabai, because I'm not even sure which side of the debate I'm on. I feel like it varies by day for me, but while I do think being extroverted makes it slightly easier in our society, but I'm not sure I think it is on the level of full-on oppression. And I do also think that introverts have areas where they have it better, so hard to say anything as a general statement. Hey, Takerosh, how are you? Mesoverts exist, Jabai. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot about, when I think about things like where are we at in terms of oppression, I think about things like getting jobs, getting pay raises, right? Like, right, sort of those sort of like base, like being able to function well in society. And so taking the statement as true, right? Taking these experiences as true, that if you are an introvert, it's harder for you to get a job. It's harder for you to get promoted in that job and to get raises in that job. It is harder for you to make and keep friends. It is harder for you to go out and socialize, to just live your everyday life. If all of those things are true, that feels like an awful lot of oppression to me. Do you know what I mean? Hey, Artie Snack. How? Oh, there. It's right over there. There you go. Different prefixes. Yeah, so the only group I'm for oppressing are vegetarians, as I mix up meatloaf to put in the oven. So I think about, by the way, we have a social group of friends with us right now. So we're gonna try and go back into that factory and see if we can do a little bit of hacking and a little bit of chatting. Just a little bit here and there of trying to figure out what's going on with people's secret buildings, because we can. Yeah. Social hacking is a thing. Social hacking. Yeah, so I just like really want to make sure that people who are well skilled, but who like the idea of somebody being good at their job, but not getting that job because they're an introvert, that's not great. Do you know what I mean? Like and then some extrovert who's not as skilled getting that job because they talk the good talk, and because they can go and hang out after hours with the boss and do all of that extrovert stuff that the introvert can't do. You know what I mean? Like, and then then that extrovert gets promoted, gets paid more, gets more stuff because they have, because they're an extrovert and they can go and do the social schmoozing that extroverts have structured our society around. That's not great. That's bad. Like, that's no good at all. I think when you're a teen young adult, think high school and college age kind of, extroverts have it easier socially, to a degree at least. As you get older, I think, not even sure as I'm only 24 myself, introverts get easier socially. But yeah, when it comes to getting a job and that stuff, being extroverted probably brings some benefits. Yeah. The idea of the socially awkward master hacker hider in the bedroom is inaccurate. That's true. Takarush, I just celebrated my dad's 70th birthday a couple of days early. Oh, congratulations to your dad. We had 3 types of ribs: Norwegian at Christmas, Shanghai red braised pork belly, and boneless barbecue. As well as home smoked salmon. That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. But what if the boss is an introvert? Asks Ice Bunny. Hey Sal, welcome in. I suppose the point being that it is less likely for the boss to be an introvert, the way our society is structured, that you are less likely to be able to get that position if you are an introvert because of, right, social oppression of is it amazing or it's amazing, yeah, right, you know what I mean? Like right, the idea that if you are an introvert, you're less likely to be able to rise to those positions of leadership. And I should tell you a thing. I'm going to tell you a thing. But Artie Snack says, that reminds me of when I was in university. There was a lot of discussion of that. And so someone created a song called Carrot Juice Constitutes Murder. Hold on, Krellin. I'm a socially awkward master hacker hiding in my bedroom. I have friends to do the social engineering for me. I see you, Jer. Jerry, you told me that you get by with a little help from your friends. So this is, can I tell you a thing that makes me really sad? I want to tell you, this is about, right, introvert marginalization. So as you all know, I'm a teacher. I'm a professor. That's what I do. I profess. And I've talked to people who are undergraduates who are like, I would love to be a professor, but I'm an introvert, so I could never do that job. And there are people who will say things like, you can't be a professor unless you're an extrovert. And then there are all these introverts who want to be professors, but feel like they can't because they're introverts and they're not allowed. Hey, J.A. Pasco. And that makes me, I just feel like that's super tragic. One, because of course it's not true. Being a professor is actually pretty great if you're an introvert. Like there are a lot of things. That I mean, if you were an introvert, considering that like a large portion of this job is being alone and writing and reading, this is actually pretty good for introverts. But there are all these introverts who are discouraged from doing this job, a job that they would really be interested in and be really good at because they're introverts. And so I do think, right, that there is something to think about. Takarosh says, the tyranny of extroverts is a reason why, if I were a business owner, the promotions would be based on actual skill rather than personalities bubbling up to the top, with 6-month provisional promotion in case of incompetence, right? And I think that this is the sort of the language we're thinking about, the tyranny of extroverts, right? That extroverts have created a tyrannical system that oppressed introverts. And so as an extrovert who tries to be ethical in my life, I think it becomes important to sort of think about, okay, what am I doing? What am I saying? How are the words that I say? How can they be taken to harm people? So I always think it's important to sort of be careful. Be careful, right, about what things you put out in the universe, because they can be used to harm people that who are already being harmed, and I worry about that. Falcon says, I taught as an ambivert. Oh yeah, and I know a bunch of introvert professors who profess very well because they're Krellin says, it's because Krellin had a really good point. It's because the part of the job they see is extrovert focused. They don't see the isolated reading, researching part. Yeah, so I try to let them know that like you can do this. And also, if you're a university professor, the number of hours a week you're actually in the classroom is not huge. So like it's totally doable. And I don't want people's dreams to feel like, and that's the thing. That's the thing about oppression, right? Here we're talking about oppression again, right? One of the things about oppression is that I dropped my plastic knife. That oppression limits you, right? Oppression limits your horizons. It makes you think that you can't do things, right? One of the things about privilege is that you think that you can do things, various things. You're like, you don't think that you can't do certain things in your life, in your job, right? I never felt like there are jobs I can't do, but I talk to my introvert friends and they tell me that they think there are jobs they can't do because they're an introvert, right? So that's the way in which, as Takarosh calls it, the tyranny of extroversion limits and harms people who are introverts. Ice Bunny says, now I wonder, as an introvert with dyslexia, it is said that dyslexics are often found to be entrepreneurs, so I wonder what weighs more. I would say, being an introvert doesn't mean that you can't talk to people. It just means that you need recharge time. Being an introvert doesn't mean that you don't have social skills. You can have social skills and be an introvert. You can be the life of a party and be an introvert. You can be charming and be an introvert. It's just that doing those things can be draining and you need recharge time. You can definitely work a room. I know some great introverts who are super, super, super socially adept. Sal says, introversion is just one aspect of a personality profile, and so it's staggeringly common that really very little is closed off to them. Something like roughly half the people are on the introverted side of the spectrum. Totally. Falcon says, yeah, but I taught teamwork and climbing. Krellin says, the thing about oppressing is that it oppresses you very deep. For real, I get it. Resetting helps. No, right? Yeah, that's and I think that because I think that people don't get oppression. Do you know what I mean? Like I think about that a lot. PH is like, he's talking about me. I'm the super socially adapted introvert. I'm not. That was a joke. Oh no. Sorry. We're hacking. Please enter the name of the employee whose file you want to view. Ooh. B. Hecht. Yeah, and because the thing is, I was thinking about this, and I just think that people don't actually realize what oppression does to a person. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm gonna tell you something about the Phantom Menace, actually. Phantom Menace. Javai says, I think it's easier to say extroverted behavior is favored than introverted behaviors because extroverted behaviors are external and therefore easier to see. It's harder to see introverted behaviors at a glance, so you may not immediately notice introverted behaviors and the benefits it brings or associate with introversion. B. Hecht. I mean, work in general requires recharge time, whether you enjoy the job or not, which I guess is a good simile for introversion. Takaro says, I can work the room with the best of them, but I need to recharge afterwards. Exactly, right? So, I mean, but yes. Oh, Phantom Menace. So the thing about the Phantom Menace that really ticked me off, that I did not like, was how they treated the character of Anakin Skywalker. And this was not just actually, it's like the original, the prequel trilogy really frustrated me with how they dealt with Anakin Skywalker, generally speaking. So here's Anakin Skywalker, right? Who was enslaved. He was enslaved. He grew up in a life of slavery. And they treated slavery as if it just meant that he had to do work in stuff that he thought was fun anyway. And I suppose didn't get paid for it, but they didn't frame it as something that was oppressive. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't really framed as something like, I mean, oppression is deep. Like, oppression is profound. Like, oppression is not the same thing as like discomfort. It is like Falcon's like, there was a lot of bad in those films. It's true. Like, it is like oppression is something that is very damaging. Like, it is like it is something that is really far reaching, you know? And they sort of just framed slavery like, I don't know, like it was kind of a lark. He still got to go and race in pod races and whatever. And then, of course, the Jedi take him and then leave his mom in slavery. Awkward. Okay, Jedi. And the thing is that I think they really missed a really great opportunity to sort of thematize like post-traumatic stress disorder. Javai says, I mean, Star Wars overall tends to ignore the bad side of a lot of things. Although I would disagree. I felt like as a kid, watching the original trilogy, I got that slavery was not good, right? Like when Princess Leia was the slave girl to Jabba the Hutt, I really got the sense that was a bad deal and not at all fun. Do you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, that's bad. Like I got that sense that it was not okay. In the original trilogy was always just a bit grungier in general, and I felt like they had a really great opportunity to show the ways in which being oppressed in that way can be damaging to you. I felt like they could have really thematized the ways in which Anakin was suffering coming out of a life of having been enslaved, and then the ways in which the Jedi Council was not taking that seriously or paying attention to it at all. And that they really could have done something I thought really profound and good with that, but then they didn't. And that makes me sad because I felt like the prequel trilogy could have been better, you know? Also could have better writing. Besides, if I were incompetent, I would not have risen to acting sous chef at my favorite convention while only being a volunteer. That's amazing, Takarosh. Then he's in a different cult without a lot of freedom. Oh yeah, Falcon. Yeah. Feelings about your mom or the dark side, kid. All that love, it's bad. Yeah. Falcon notes the original had good editors. Marsha Lucas made that film. She made that film. Jer says Anakin would be a lot more believable if his oppression was played up more. Yeah, and I think it could have been a lot more. I think it could have just been more profound. I think it'd been a lot more interesting. That's all. Sal says Star Wars is a monomyth and sticks super hard to being a monomyth, and it ain't got no time for solid moral statements, world building, or anything other than being a monomyth. Oh, Sal is correct. They are correct. Krellin says the Jedi were wrong. That's what Star Wars is about, and the prequels delivered that message. The Jedi were wrong. They damaged Anakin, and he ended up slaughtering them all. Krellin, I think the Jedi were wrong, but I know a lot of people who watch that prequel trilogy who love the Jedi who do not get that message, who instead got the message that Palpatine was super manipulative and like really good at manipulating people. Shavai says, I will say that for me, Star Wars is the first 6 movies. So while I realize the original trilogy was different, in my mind, the original 3 and the prequels blend together, like how the movies and the trilogies blend together as a trilogy rather than the separate movies. Huh. Let's see. Braxton Hext files are filled with Saltuna breeding charts, various pharmacological formulae, and musings on why Saltuna seems to prefer borscht and beans over borschtwurst, plain borschtwurst. Huh. The Ballard. Oh. Velma's personal files are a morass of supply contracts, order forms, spreadsheets, and financial records. Careful study of her financials reveals that for the past several years, she has been slowly siphoning money from her operating budget into a personal account. The theft is cleverly hidden. Individual instances could be excused as rounding errors or mistakes in simple arithmetic. The sheer volume of occurrences, however, indicates deliberate intent. I see. We got the goods on her, though. We do have the goods on her. Oh, and we have some messages, which we can read what they're about. Well, says Krellin, Palpatine was super manipulative and good at manipulating people. That doesn't make the Jedi right. Everyone can be wrong, you know. Oh, I agree. I think the Jedi are so wrong. I think they're so wrong. I think they're so wrong. So wrong. So wrong. Like, I think their level of wrong is staggering. But, hey. Sal says, the Jedi were wrong, but so was Anakin, and so was Palpatine. There's plenty of wrong to go around. I think Jer says, there was a series of animated shorts in the early 2Ks between episode 2 and 3 that does bring up Anakin's fears a lot more. They even have a part where Anakin comes across a race being enslaved and has flashbacks. Oh, that's really cool. I've heard that the animated show is very good, that the animated series have been really well done, and that you have to read them. So I'm very excited about that. Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars cartoon was really good. Yeah, I hear that the Clone Wars was really, really good. Really good. Oh. PH says, what I hate is that some people see how wrong the Jedi are and then take the logic jump that means that the Sith must therefore be right. Oh, yeah. No. No. The Sith murder people a lot. They have a really bad, like, organizing system. A system where, like, you just murder your boss when you want your boss's job. It's not a great system. Not a great system. Takarosh says, how is the Jedi better than the Sith? Obviously, the dark side corrupts and amplifies your primal desires, but the Jedi actively kidnap and brainwash children into a cult where they are taught to ignore their own wants and needs besides absolutely necessary. And they worked as secret police of the Republic, etc., and were crusading against the heretic Sith. Also, they have secret mind control powers, and they have no governmental oversight. I mean, they just, like, go to places. I don't know. I have feelings about them. Sal says, the Jedi were wrong, but they were wrong in the way that could potentially be reformed, maybe. But ain't no writers got time for that story of moral complexity. We need some laser sword pew-pews! Which was also good, but not in the same way. I think... Javai says, I will say that a large portion of my dislike for Star Wars is just the Jedi and how they're perceived and how the sides of the Force are perceived. Yeah, Javai, yeah. I mean, I think one of the problems with the Jedi, honestly, is the Jedi Creed, right? The fact that you're not supposed to feel things. And I was like, that's... And I get that this is, like, Lucas's, like, weird take on like, samurai or something. I don't know what he's got going on there. But, like, his misreading of Eastern philosophy. But, it's not great. They also only had knights and masters on their councils and shipped off kids who didn't fit into lesser criteria and no voice. Also, there is so much going on that isn't good in that world we can see in our own society. Fades out of the... Don't fade out! No! Falcon, don't fade out! And I think it's interesting because the thing is, yeah, stoicism possibly, yeah. And like that philosophical... And the thing is... yeah, the Jedi are supposed to be samurai by ways of wizards with laser swords. And of course, the problem is that there are people now... Yeah, yes, Jer, it's Lucas's bad take on Taoism, right? Like, it's a real bad take on Taoism. And you're like, wow. And there are people who put down Jedi as their religion, who want to sort of, like, follow this philosophy, which is not a good take. Also, like, for me... One of the more disturbing parts, by the way, it's why I love Knights of the Old Republic, but one of the more disturbing parts of the Star Wars universe, there are a lot of things, but it's that moment in episode 2 where they're chasing the doppelganger, like the shapeshifter, through Coruscant, and they're chasing the shapeshifter. They get into the bar. This is a planet that has its own police force, right? They get into this bar, and they get into a huge laser sword fight, and the local authorities like step forward and like they're just like Jedi business, and they go back to their laser fight in the middle of this bar. And I was like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. So we live in a world where Jedi, who have no oversight, by the way, just take out swords and start fighting with people on other people's planets and jurisdictions. And if people get upset about it, their response is Jedi business. And I suppose that's all you can do because they have superpowers. Do you know what I mean? Like they're like samurai wizards with laser swords. And apparently they can just start murdering people in your bar and you can't do anything about it. And also, this is a world that has slavery, and they also don't do anything about that. And also, like, some pretty oppressive things going on in this universe, and they don't do anything about it. So, like, my feeling about Jedi is they sketch me out, and also they take children, and then those children can never contact their parents again. Like, I just feel like if I were like a non-Jedi in this world, I would be like, oh, creepy. Like, I would feel very uncomfortable with all of that. Volpa says, yeah, it's Taoist Buddhist monasteries, yeah. Krillin says, and in the end, he threw it all away. Father, please, remember you love your son. Throw off the shackles of the dark side. Nothing Jedi about Vader's face turn. Yeah, and actually I think that's what's really interesting about about Luke, right? Like Luke basically abandoned the Jedi. Like Luke left Yoda, right, to go save his friends. And one thing I liked about episode 8 was like this sort of idea that that actually the Jedi ways were not good when Luke sort of burns the Jedi stuff. I thought that was good in some ways, right? That like that you have to maybe what you need to do is sort of reform and have a new way of thinking about it. I have the laser sword. That means I'm always right. Javai says, I haven't played all that many Star Wars games in general, but if they have a morality system in place with the light and dark sides of the Force, it's never based on what the sides actually represent, but just good versus evil side of the Force, with the light side choices being emotional choices rather than the more logical and calculating dark ones. Well, it's often kill the puppy or save the puppy, to be honest. Just kill the puppy, save the puppy. Krellin notes in caps, Rian Johnson got it and they punished him by taking it away from him. I am sad that they took it away from him because I liked what he did with that movie. I know that movie was not popular in some circles, but I liked it. Texas Ranger of the turn of the century, yeah. Sal says, there's something to be said for discipline and focus as a guiding part of your philosophy. Discipline and focus are good things if it gets to the point where you feel you need to cut off all emotion immediately. Therein lies the problem. Humans and theoretically non-human sapients in the Star Wars canon are guided by our emotions because our emotions are important and core to our condition. Ignoring or suppressing them is a fast track to, well, evil. Sal says, episode 8 was amazing. Stupid fucking internet Nazis. Yeah. TLJ was more popular than The Rise of Skywalker. It's interesting, right? Because I remember when The Last Jedi came out and there were all sorts of people who were just so mad. Yeah. Carl's like, there was a small vocal minority of racist asswipes that didn't like The Last Jedi. I think that's probably true. Although it's interesting, right? Because the internet is so weird, right? People did not like, people said that, people say that Superman Returns was a flop, but actually it made money. So it just wasn't, like there was just a bunch of people who didn't like it, but it made money. But again, like the discourse around it ended up being very negative. Whether, like, I'm not saying it was a good or a bad film. I'm just saying that it actually wasn't a flop, but whatever. In the Legends lore, there was an order called the Jedi Order, who were mystics who focused on the balance of the Force. If you were too steeped in either side, they made you meditate on the other side to gain balance. They were the predecessors of both the Jedi Order and the Sith. Oh, that's interesting. Braxton, the fish tank and the 23A are looking a little lumpy. If you're not going to make it in, that's fine, but you have to let me know so I can stay on top of the doses. Interesting. Mr. Nandi, we really need to talk about the salt tuna situation. I've had to let 4 batches rot in the warehouse over the last 2 months because we're not finding buyers. I know the situation with the board put us in a tough spot, but we need to start thinking about how we're going to keep Stellar Bay afloat if we can't get sales up. Brax, seriously, where are you? You've missed 3 shifts. This is getting ridiculous, even for you. I'm having some feelings that I don't know what to do about. Essentially, Jolie from KOTOR. Yes, I loved Jolie. Jolie was great. So I'm having some feelings about this situation here that I'm not quite sure what to do about. So I kind of want, so here's the thing. I want more than one thing to happen here is what I want. And I'm not quite certain how to get the more than one thing that I want to happen. So what is this place? Well, whatever this place is, we should go here. Yeah, I want more than one thing, and I don't know. Oh, tossball betting. Let's go there first. And I don't really quite know what to do about it. Yeah. I don't know what to do about it. Oh, there's a person right there, so I will not steal. Yeah. The Jedi Code from which the Jedi code was built said chaos yet balance, ignorance yet knowledge. All of it was this yet that, none of it. There is only. Yeah, that is actually very cool. So I want also, oh hey, we could pickpocket that person. They're gone. Whatever. Let's chat.
Ooh, you're the new face.
Hello.
Wow, you must be up on all the latest tossball games.
Nope.
So who do you follow? Wait, don't tell me. You look like a Hammersmith Thunder fan. No, Glacial H. Mammoths.
Oh, I'm gonna lie. This game needs a toss. I'm gonna lie.
Darlings? Seriously? I mean, yeah, you're looking at the Darlings' newest recruit. Boss is a shoo-in for Rookie of the Quarter.
Thanks.
I'd heard they'd gotten a new hacker. Is that why everyone's making such a fuss about you? But what are you doing on Monarch?
This is part of a goodwill tour on Halcyon. We're meeting our fans across the colony.
Maybe we're not so isolated.
I'm just messing with them.
Listen to games all day? Stellar Bay really is a paradise.
It's pretty swell, but it's a whole lot better with company.
Oh.
I don't think I've seen you before, and I'd remember that face.
Oh.
I'll try not to be a stranger then. Name's Felix, by the way.
I'm gonna just listen quietly to all this flirting going on right now is what I'm gonna do. KOTOR had some great mini games. I remember really enjoying the sort of racing mini game. I enjoyed that. Oh no, it's not your dumb ears. I brought the volume down because the volume of the load screen volume is quite loud, but the game volume is quite low. So I always pull it down when I'm chatting, and then I have to bring it back up and I forget. So I appreciate that. Let me know if this works.
You should stop by more often. The games are always better when you've got someone to celebrate with.
Sounds like a good time. I wouldn't mind bringing a couple drinks and settling in for the pennant match.
Look at me, getting carried away again. So, what can I do for you?
It was just an act. You said you were having trouble receiving the tossball game transmissions?
Graham's always filling the airwaves with this propaganda, like it's done him any good. All it means is the tossball games get to us in fragments. Makes them real hard to watch.
Oh. Is there any way I can help? Well, we'll see. We'll see what we can do about that. I'm not gonna steal your stuff in front of you while you're looking. In Jedi Academy, I tend to gravitate towards a mix of light and dark side powers. That's Takirosh. And Krellin says, the duality of light and dark together is far more Taoist anyway. Yeah, right? That's what I feel like. Anyway, I think the thing is that I like a lot of the, oh, hey. What is this place? And also, can I just rob it? And the answer is yes. Also, I recognize that we have been doing a lot of chatting today, but that's fine because chatting is life. That's it. Don't be the Sith. They're evil. They use the Force for things like lightning bolts. The Jedi are good. They use the Force for mind control. Krellin points out, mind control's only evil if you believe in free will. Oh, which the Jedi obviously don't. Ooh, that is, oh, Krellin. That is a very interesting point. That is a very interesting point that I'm going to need to, yeah. Oh, Falcon, you have Mando armor in progress? Ooh. Also, what is this place? Krellin, you are just dropping some truth bombs right now. Some really, that's, Krellin. That's really interesting. Yeah. You are correct. You are not incorrect at all about that thought. Yeah. Oh. Krellin, wait. Hold on. That is so profound that we need to make this something we've learned, because we're adding that quote. Mind control is only evil if you believe in free will, which the Jedi obviously don't. Krellin, you're getting a quote right now. Krellin 2020. Excuse me, the kid through my walls. I am so sorry that the kid through your wall is being horrible. The Force will provide. But if there's no free will, then isn't using mind control perverting the will of the universe, God, fate, whatever? Except that I suppose that they're like one with the Force. I don't even know. Sal says, ooh, off topic, but I just remembered it and I wanted to show it off. One of my friends upgraded my heart emote. Ooh. Sal, what a great heart emote. I love that. That is so good. So it's really, ooh. Pondering the idea that Jedi don't believe in free will. Also, yeah. No, J. Pasco, because if there's no free will, it's a fate using you as its tool to enforce its will. Yeah, I get a strong feeling that they see themselves as the instruments of, hey, let's, hello. I've got a lot of questions about things like what's over here? And am I gonna fall off and die? Probably. That is a thing I like to do quite often. Yep, I'm gonna fall off and die. It's cool. Yeah, but I didn't die. It's fine. Though, if there's free will, is there such a thing as evil in the first place? The Jedi obviously believe in prophecies. It's true. Not as much as free will. They do believe. Oh, hey, they do believe in prophecies. That is true. A plasma carbine. That seems like it could be fun. I mean, I don't know, but maybe. If there's no free will, is there even good and evil, though? Like, if you are just moving to a script, is there any point at all to those terms? The quote that made the Jedi incredibly sinister. They never say good or evil, though, do they? They say light and dark. That's true. Counterpoint, only a master of evil, Darth, episode 4. When a Mommy Saltuna and a Papa Saltuna swim together. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, one, that I want to get back up here. Get up here. This is where I want to go. I want to be under the sea. I think that I can go this way, and that'll be really fun and interesting. I don't know if I can go this way, but I want to try. I may just fall off, but I did. So apparently you cannot walk on that thing at all. Wait. Hold on. Permanently crippled. Your leg's been damaged too many times, and your movement speed has now been permanently lowered. No. And I'm unable to dodge? I don't want that. I don't want that at all. That seems not at all fun. Perks are they're never worth it. Like, maybe there'll be one that I like, and then I'll take it. Okay. So, when two Saltuna are chemically manipulated, they swim together, and the mommy Saltuna lays some eggs for the daddy Saltuna to turn into babies. Yeah. So, the thing about light and dark, sort of on this topic, pondering it for a moment, is it seems as if, I'm going to rehearse this idea and tell me if you think this is true. Tell me if this works. They don't seem to believe in free will, but they do seem to believe that the Force has will, right? So, and that the Force, that there is a light and a dark side of the Force that can influence people in different ways. And so it doesn't seem as if there is a unitary fate, right? And what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't seem to me as if you can't, that there's only one outer force, and so therefore you could not have both good and evil because there's only one outer force, when it seems as if the outer force is dual by nature. So, and it's like I don't know, it's like the Greek gods fighting amongst themselves. There's not just hello. There's not just one. Oh, let's hack. No fate, but what the Force makes. And the thing is, the Force is not a unitary idea, it seems, right? Right? And it seems there is some possibility to either choose for the light or the dark side. I wonder, this is J.A. Pasco, it's such an interesting idea. Do they think of it as choosing, or do they think it as succumbing? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? And I know this is like pedantic, like this is super pedantic, but I'm just wondering about the implications of, do you have free will to choose light side or dark side? Or do you succumb to the call of either the light side or the dark side? Do you know what I mean? And I suppose, I mean, the point is, who is the agent? Is the agent the light side or the dark side, or is the agent you? And I wonder about how they conceive of that. Krellin says, there's Zoroastrian. There's a light side and a dark side in eternal struggle, and we are all just tools of the two who are equal in strength. Yes. Universalism versus living force was a whole Jedi thing. Sal says, I never liked light versus dark as a ham-fisted good-evil thing. You be blinded because it's too bright out. You can be blinded because it's too bright out, and it can be too dark to see. The trouble is, if it's too bright to see, your eyes are in excruciating pain, and they're easily permanently damaged. Dark may blind you, but it doesn't wound you. Where are we? Patient records. Let's enter, oh, this is Nyoka, okay. Jezza Carmichael? Wait, what? Why are there records on me? Why are there records on me? Why are there records on me, everybody? Dark starves the world of energy and life, though. J. Pasco says, the Jedi, who might be wrong, continue to act as if the succumbing has an element of choice to it. At the very least, you're choosing to give in to temptation. Let's do Nyoka first. Nyoka Ramnarim Wentworth III, by the way, we're trying to find stuff for her. Caffeinoid allotment standard. Medical engineer notes. Liver damage, likely result of prolonged alcoholism. Attitude problems, likely result of prolonged alcoholism. Frequent social withdrawal, likely the result of prolonged alcoholism. Well, let's just increase our caffeinoid allotment. Allotment increased to high. Warning, excessive caffeinoid consumption may lead to side effects such as irritability, fatigue, uncontrollable bowel movements, nausea, death. Warning, caffeinoid storage is approaching critical levels. Resupply recommended. Ugh. I'm doing it because I need some stuff, you know? Yeah. What do they say is the better question? I'm getting the feeling that Nyoka is possibly an alcoholic. I don't know. I'm getting that feeling too. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe. Who are you and what do you want? Ooh. Javai says, the Jedi also really need to stop talking about bringing balance to the Force and all that in order to remove anyone opposed to their side of the Force. Especially since they had way more numbers, so like balance of the Force kind of probably means murdering some younglings. That's all. It's weird how when you control whole colonies with alcohol, many develop alcoholism. Levi, what are you saying? I think you are correct. Iffy says, hey Iffy, Star Wars Rebels had a Jinn-like being that talked about being both and kind of beyond the binary concept of Jedi or Sith. I think the Jedi just purposely misunderstood the prophecy. Probably, Krellin. Yeah, also, hey Iffy. You mean the giant mushroom being? Anakin totally brought balance to the Force. After Anakin, there were 2 Jedi and 2 Sith. That's true. I just probably not... Yeah, I'm gonna look at my records. Error, patient not found. Please try again. Okay, good. Okay, good. You don't... Okay. Data storage. Please enter the name of the employee whose files you want to view. E. Williams. Notes reaction plus pep you up. Notes bushberry extract plus debiliterol. Notes Costolorine triple dosage. Oh, what's going on here? Seems a little suspicious. Hey, Anarch Dovey. Anarch about the younglings. They had it coming. They had it coming. They only had themselves to blame. If you'd have been there, if you'd have seen it, then you would have done the same. Those younglings, I mean, they were just like too cute to live. To me, it seems about which side you want to harness, or maybe what school of harnessing you want to master. Iffy. Levi says, it's funny how poorly equipped the Jedi were to interpret their own prophecies. Oh, yeah, they were really bad at it. Falcom says, not the first musical reference Trooper has done this week, and that is true. Smash cut to Anakin drowning kittens. Here's what I'm thinking. I feel like, work with me. I'm going to rehearse this. I'm rehearsing it. See what you think. That the problem is neither the light side nor the dark side of the Force, but the structures that the Jedi and the Sith built to harness their access of that side of the Force. Right? Maybe? So what I mean to say is, there may be nothing inherently wrong with either the light or the dark side, but the Sith idea that what you need to do is murder your mentor in order to take their position seems like a bad, I don't know where that came from. Where did you get that one? Where did you get the idea that a really good way to organize your system is like a lot of boss murder? And then with the Jedi, where did you get the idea that what you need to do is kidnap children and tell them they shouldn't have any feelings? I don't know. That feels really removed from either the light or the dark side of the Force. That seems like a whole bunch of other stuff that probably involves people telling you that you need to, I don't know what. That just seems questionable. And Artebe says, Jedi were bad at many things, but I think that's only because of Lucas's writing. Iffy says, I think the concept of a Jedi chosen one is a religious self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Krellin says, yeah, I'm not sure how the Force will set me free translate to wanton cruelty and wholesale slaughter. Yeah, there seems to be some kind of disconnect between those things. Levi's like, probably not from the original master. Yeah, that was the line of Bane. The other lines of Sith were weird elsewhere. Yeah. And the Jedi got their idea from their Catholic influence. Yeah, so I'm just saying there's like stuff in there. I was like, I don't know. There seems like a big gap between I can have feelings and feelings will lead to being set free to let's murder some people. Yeah, the Sith code is like the underpants gnome plan. The Sorth will set me free, slaughter. And you're like, I don't and for celibacy, there's just a lot going on there, right? There's just a lot forced. Oh, I see that pun, Iffy. I see it. Let me read this. I had hypothesized that this combination might awaken my mind and senses to the greater realities around us. If that is true, then it seems my faculties were quite overwhelmed in this instance. Shortly after the dosage, I experienced cold sweats, tremors, and mild paranoia. It is perhaps due to these latter effects that most of my notes from the episode are of little use. Nevertheless, the effects were most invigorating. I will have to attempt a milder dosage once heart palpitations subside. So our doctor is self-experimenting. Is experimenting maybe on themselves. Okay. This is why the Grey Force users are the only way. I mean, I do love myself some Jolie Bindo and also Kreia. I'm obsessed with Kreia. So, I mean, I enjoyed some gray Jedi people in the Knights of the Old Republic. I really like Knights of the Old Republic, everybody. I really liked Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 very much. And I would like to see Rian Johnson do a Knights of the Old Republic trilogy. But they won't let him do it. But I would really like that a lot. Taking children and teaching them to control their emotions. Have you ever seen Tibetan Buddhist monks? But it's not, see, they're not teaching them to control their emotions. They're teaching them to suppress their emotions and not love. And that's different. Like, teaching people not to love is different from teaching people to control their emotions. Like, if you have a hard time controlling your emotions and you lash out, you should probably be taught how to not do that. But there's a difference between, like, hey, don't lash out and also don't love anybody ever. Like, that seems questionable. Yeah, the Jedi are some toxic masculinity bullshit. I'm just saying. Iffy says, because the Force is a tangible manifested power, it just becomes about ways in which we wield that power. And apparently we only have two choices. That's what, but again, if gender's not a binary, I can't imagine the Force is a binary either. Bushberry extract plus debilirol. After my previous experiments, I theorized that deadening the external senses might allow the mind's eye to glimpse the eternal. Alas, I was only partially successful. The combination of substances quickly rendered me both blind and feeble, so much so that I soon fell into a stupor. I woke some hours later in a pile of my own sick and a most curious craving for Tilleritos. I feel like this doctor is making very poor choices. Very poor choices. Very poor choices. Very poor choices. Krellin notes, controlling emotions about appropriate circumstances and times for emotional expression. The Jedi say don't feel anything, emotions are monsters. Yeah. Also, monasteries are very depressing. No one talks about how much those kids cry as they grow up, for example. Yeah. Speaking of monasteries, I was thinking about how monasteries would probably be really great for introverts, right? Like, you can imagine, there's a documentary about monasteries that I want to see. I think it's called Integrate Silence. And it's about one of the last cloistered monasteries in the world, which is in the Alps of France, I think, somewhere. And where they are cloistered and have vows of silence, and how, like the ways in which they find, I mean, but they have feelings. Like, those monks still have feelings. They're just cloistered. And I imagine if you are an introvert, probably it would be the best, right? Like, you're in a community of people. I've contemplated joining the priesthood on occasion, but my crippling atheism has prevented me. Krellin, it's that crippling atheism. It'll get you every time. But, like, think about it. You are in a place, a beautiful place, in the French Alps, let's say. You have a community of people around you who you will not talk to and they will not talk to you. And that's great because you don't want to. And you spend your day, you don't have to worry about rent or food or anything like that. You do some farming, you study, you read, you probably sing. I think monks who have taken a vow of silence can sing, right? So you sing multiple times a day. So you're in sort of singing fellowship with people. You get to sort of ponder the big questions of the universe. And you don't have to deal with technology, speed of society. You don't think about any of that kind of stuff. You can just sort of be having this sort of simple introverted life alongside a community of people in the Alps. Like, I imagine that it is something really wonderful and profound and healing and positive for people like that. Yeah, if he's like, oh yeah, as adults as opt in, yes, and they do, and they also, you have, like, it is a big deal to opt in. It's not so easy. if we're talking about olden days monasteries, you even got like education and stuff. Yeah. And some of those monasteries were not, in some of the monasteries, not all the monasteries were cloistered. In some of the monasteries, you could talk, and also they had wine there. Like, you might be one of those monasteries that makes wine. So there's wine and singing, and you're hanging out in the space. Levi, so you're selling this pretty hard, Trooper. I just try to like be thoughtful about my introvert friends. That's all. And like other lifestyles. As long as you're an introvert that craves structure. I'm sure there are introverts that do not. Yes. For introverts who crave structure, and also I imagine people who want that structure in general, right? If he says, I think in some ways monasteries were really cool. They were also subversive utopian projects, which they were. I love my technology. It gives me community and a chance to zone out. Different technologies, I would say. It's interesting because they were subversive utopian projects that were quite threatening to church power structures. Honestly, there are ways in which a lot, like the people were very concerned about monasteries. Javi says, wasn't it not unheard of in the olden days for women to join monasteries and stuff in order to not get married? Oh, yeah. If you were a woman and you wanted to get a leadership position, you wanted to be able to do leadership stuff. You wanted to get educated and not have to get married. You wanted to have like a full career. You would just join a nunnery. Right, you would join a nunnery, and you could do. There's also somewhere for sex labor, or maybe even closeted spaces for queer people. So that's awful. But closeted spaces for queer people was not awful. That was a positive. For sex labor, that's negative, right? So that's awful. If it were if it were basically a brothel, that's no good. That's bad. But having it be a space for queer people would not be a bad thing, right? Because you can go to, if you're a queer person, you want to find other queer people, and you can join a monastery or a nunnery and then find other queer people and then be in relations with those people, then that becomes like a positive space, especially if there was a brothel nunnery in Venice. I think so, yeah. Now, I don't know if it was a real nunnery or just a brothel nunnery, but you know what I mean. Also, nunnery was also slang for a brothel. If you were an old gentry spinster, you were sent to the monastery. Yeah, so you could like. Oh yeah, this. No. Oh, but that was the entire society, right? You know what I mean? Like, the entire society was closeted in that space. I think the reason, says Krellin, the Albigensian heresy was quashed was because they were co-ed monasteries, and the church was like, oh shit, self-sustaining communes must destroy. Yeah, totally. And also there were some questions about, Takador says, a couple of monks developed genetics. Dom Perignon was a monk who accidentally invented champagne. Oh, that's interesting. So one of the thing about the entire world was suppressed for queer people, right? So, I mean, you could get away from farming and all that and instead spend your days reading and stuff. But also, and here's what's really interesting, is that there was this real concern, I think, in the early days of the church, because people got really into the religion. They're like, yeah, church, we totally buy it. We're going to go and like join this monastery. And monasteries are self-sustaining communes where people don't have children, right? So all of a sudden, yeah, there's now an open admission of sexual abuse in comments, and that's really bad. Yeah. From the priests, yeah. And so, but of course, it's interesting is that there were some of the, this is actually really interesting that people found the nunneries really threatening. They found them super threatening because in the early days, women just sort of made these convents on their own when there were no priests involved. They were these all-women spaces that did not have men involved in them, controlling them or being in charge of them. And so the church were like, no, we cannot have that. We need to, like, because all these women were just like, we're going to sort of basically make these all-women spaces and we don't need no men. And the church was like, no, we cannot have that. So the church had to step in and be involved in those cloistered abbeys. But also, one of the problems with all these people got really involved, like they got really excited about these monasteries and abbeys and these cloistered spaces and not having children. And the church was like, okay, this is not going to be useful if all of our followers do not have children. And so they had to sort of basically discourage, if you know, self-sustaining communes breaking social order. Yeah, they had to discourage people from going into these cloistered communes because it was messing up. Oh, file empty. That seems bad. That seems bad. They had to discourage people from, and also they were not the early monasteries, abbeys, convents were also not really tied into church hierarchy. They were really sort of not. So that became a problem as well, that people were like, they're like, we're doing our own thing. And you're like, oh, ooh, what is this? Stellar Bride. She's a wide-eyed colonist from Earth. He's a hard work. Oh, sorry. Reinhard W says, technology stuff reminds me of what happens to us when large-scale automation becomes reality, when no one has money to spend on products that corporations make. This time the automation is different because the amount of jobs it would replace is greater than it creates. Yeah. Women living alone together? Lunacy! Pun intended. Hysterical! Pun also intended, Jer. Krellin says, oh yeah, another problem with the Albergenesians, they let women be religious leaders. Yeah. People are like, oh no, we cannot have that. Iffy says, yeah, I mean, the mystics took religious teachings into the cool spaces. Yeah, so it's really interesting the ways in which, I think this was also another situation with the early church. Interesting that the church preaches that life right now is suffering and terrible, but that's okay because when you die, you'll go to heaven and it'll be great and you'll have all the stuff. So apparently, early Christians were like, right, and would commit suicide because they were like, if we know it'll be better when we die, let's just die now and it'll be great. And so the church was like, no, we still need you to give us money now. So then they sort of made suicide a sin, and if you commit suicide, then you won't go to heaven, because early followers were committing suicide because the theology made it seem way better in the afterlife than it was here. Yes. Doesn't that depend on the order the monks belongs to? Yeah, get on that cult tip. Luther has joined the chat. Hello. We're talking about the early orders, Ice Bunny. Because that's what Jesus wanted, because he was a doomsday apocalyptic preacher. Yeah, early Christianity was a doomsday cult, and there were like a bunch of these cults around at the time. There were like lots and lots of sort of charismatic leader cults happening. They were all very, interesting. Let's see. Stellar Bride. She's a wide-eyed colonist from Earth. He's a hard-working farmer from Monarch. Their attraction blossoms into a whirlwind romance that transforms Stellar Bay. Chapter 3. A long way from Arkansas. You can put your things here, Mr. Elliot said, leading Abby into the dim apartment. The place was small, but had a certain cozy charm. Abby set her bags on the floor and loosened the straps of her jumpsuit. Mr. Elliot coughed, his face suddenly red. If you get warm, you can always crack the window. Breeze from the bay is real nice. Just be careful about mantis swarms. As Abby went to take the room key, her fingers brushed his. He had strong, rough hands, a Saltuna farmer's hands. She felt herself blush. You've been ever so kind to me, Mr. Elliot. Call me Archibald, he said. We're gonna read some fan fiction. Ice Bunny says, that was because of the shit show their society was and how oppressed they were. Doomsday cult with a pain and suffering fetish. Yeah, it's a new chapter of Atlanta Knights, and I love it. The Passion Broker. A renegade iconoclast, driven by his ideals, finds love in the arms of a mysterious man with a tortured past. Will he follow his head or his heart? Chapter 2, Tall, Dark, and Handsome. Come on up, said the voice on the comm. It was dangerous and smooth in a way that reminded Broderick of iceberg-aged whiskey. The door slid open with a whisper of perfumed air. The hair rose along the nape of his neck, and he proceeded up the stairs. The broker sat with his back to a top-of-the-line, mostly charcoal personal heater. Slender fingers tented. So this was a mysterious recluse who manipulated Monarch from afar. Broderick could feel the warmth of the heater from across the room, but it was the look in the broker's eyes that had him feeling feverish. The broker produced a pair of glasses and a bottle of something that looked expensive. He poured it off and held one of the glasses out to Broderick. "For me?" he asked, trying to ignore the man's smoldering gaze. "Indeed," the broker purred. "I hear you're a man of bold tastes." Broderick took his glass. The broker continued, dark hair falling over darker eyes. "Floppy hair. That's why I've got a rare proposition for you." The glass nearly slipped from Broderick's fingers. He drank it in one gulp to hide the tremor in his hand. It burned all the way down. Love it. Scarily close to truth here, Atlanta Knights. And Artemis says this hurts, but does it hurt as much as Atlanta Knights? I don't think it does. This may also be IRC RPG channels, maybe. If he says, I mean, Franciscan Order was built on giving up all of your worldly goods and serving the poor. That's not a problem for an expanding empire at all. I think eventually they were used to colonize Americas, but still. Oh, yeah. Especially if you give up your worldly goods to the church, right? Like, hey, Atomica, welcome back. Like, it's very convenient if you have orders that say give up all of your worldly goods to the church. Like, that's convenient. Warning, Trooper, you have streamed so much in the past 2 days that I now have 9 fate points stored up for the Resistance. Ooh, that's why I have the limit of 4 per session. 4 per session, that's why I have the limit. Although I imagine there are new folks who have not yet racked up some extra credit points. I had to, so here's the thing, Carlin, I had to make a balance. I put 5,000 because I had to make a balance of enough points that people who are old timers like you can't just like flood the stream all the time, but not so many that new timers can't earn some to give. So it's like that balance. I think 5,000. I did the math. I did the math. Also, Krellin, they might need some of those fate points for the next session because yeah, that's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm just saying that Regina is in a bad space. She got her message out, but Nazis are coming. Yeah, Carl's like, yeah, they should be rejecting more compels. I have 7 working 8 because of Regina. Yeah, it's good math. I can give fate points, but as well as other important activities. See, that's right. Like, yeah, they could be. Hey, I'm just giving them some compels if they want them. But you know, they don't. They apparently. I will not even mind you, Kulan. But you know, they want to take some compels. That's fine. But they should be rejecting more compels. I will just offer them bad compels, right? Like, I'm just gonna offer them some stuff, but sometimes they don't want to. Sometimes they want that compel. They want the trouble. Drop those liberated pistols. That will help. To be fair, Troopers reminded them at least a few times that they can reject compels. I do remind them. I'm like, you can. Was Sylvie chewing out that officer even a compel, or did Fox just do it? It was a compel, and then she just went in. She was like, I was like, so I think because you are sassy, that you would do something sassy that would be really bad for you right now. And she's like, yep. And I was like, you can reject the compel. You don't have to do the sassy thing. You can hold your tongue. And she's like, nope, I'm taking it. So, yeah. By the way, oh, PH, I love the little thing on the, I love that. The costume thing is not going to go well, I feel. Yeah. All right, we got to read this one. Clinic of the Heart. A battle-hardened young Earth Directorate soldier visits a remote clinic on Monarch to heal his injuries. But when he meets Gale, an elegant older nurse, she goes to work on his heart as well. Chapter 34, Healing Touch. Fletcher held her tightly. His strength had returned. That much was clear. Yet here he remained, at the clinic, with her. He shook his head as if he'd read her mind with his perfect green eyes. Gale, The Earth Directorate's calling me back. They want me protecting Byzantium, but I don't know how to leave. Not after what we've found together. Then stay, she whispered, letting her breath warm his ear. I can certainly find a position for you here. Oh, laws, he moaned, pulling her closer. She pressed a finger to his lips. Shh. The only law here is love. Somebody is making /fic. Also apparently worth a clinic. Good RP players know it's a race to the bottom. Hurt me. No, hurt me. So true, Iffy. Hey, look, this is what Tripper really needs. A parachute. Yes. Atlanta Night, the rejected chapters. Whose porn stash are we reading about? I don't know. This is at the doctor's office. The author's is just a screen name. I don't even know. Let's return to root. Oh, hey, we can create a new account. Oh. Apparently we can't create a new account. That's a bummer. That's a bummer. Oh, well. The slash, it writes itself. It's true. I don't know if that's entirely true, Iffy. There are a lot of good RPers that don't rely on the failing forward principle. Sometimes they just want some... Although, here's the thing. They're just taking badness. And I was like, all right. I'll give you some badness. And what I think is really interesting is that I want to know if they're going to be able to get... I mean, I have some questions. Will they be able to get the art? I think these are better than Atlantites. Oh, no, I think they are too. Yeah. I wonder if... I have questions. Toilet. I do appreciate Obsidian for giving me toilets. I don't need to use it, but thank you for having them. It's great how this game encourages stealing. Yeah, you know. Oh. It's Abigail Edwards. Hello, Abigail Edwards. Hey, Abigail, I have to tell you something. No, that's not what it is. It's this. I want to pickpocket you because I feel like what's the point of pickpocketing if being able to pickpocket if I never do it? Is there TP? No, there's a coronavirus outbreak. There's no TP. It's really bad. Ooh, dispensary room supply key. I could have just pickpocketed her this entire time. Well, I pickpocketed what I needed. Even though I've hacked into it, it's fine. They use bidets in space. It's not stealing, it's long time borrowing. Yeah, mainly because the setting is so awful to live in. Did you? No, I didn't chat her up. I wanted to steal from her before I chatted with her. So she didn't know I was here.
Dearie. Why, I don't believe I've seen you before.
Hello.
And with sweet cheeks like those, I'd remember.
Oh, that's so sweet.
What can Auntie Abigail do for you?
Are you in charge of handing out medicine?
Yes, indeed. Someone's got to keep Stellar Bay's people healthy and energized.
Oh, hey, Vulpes, I love putting grenades in people's pockets. In Fallout, that was lovely. Oh, I'm in for a treat. I'm excited. You certainly seem excited about your job.
Oh, but I am. I get to see plenty of my neighbors here, and I do dearly love a little gossip.
Oh, I'm picking up Caffeinoid for Nyoka Ramnarin Wentworth III.
Now that can't be. Ms. Ramnarine Wentworth has already exceeded the month's... Oh. Dear me. She does have another dose in her allotment. How did I miss this?
Don't worry about it, Auntie. I'm sure you've been busy.
My, but you are a doll.
I know.
Here's Nyoka's caffeinoid.
Thanks.
And if I know her, she's probably ready for it by now. Do take care of yourself, dearie.
Thanks. That was very nice of you. I'm just gonna leave. Did you see what I did? Hello, resident. Does Jessa like the man only when she's an ugly grandma? I mean, he did also pickpocket her. Do you know what I mean? Like, the thing is, he's a polite young man who will rob you blind. That's what happens. He's a polite young man that will rob you blind. That's his MO. Let's go. We've been here. So I suppose we go this way. See what we can learn from this space. And so, yes, he's a hedge fund manager. That's right. Fair, Jer, it only depends on heavily trusting the GM to respect one's limits and not just kill one's character. Jess is the type of dude who robs you blind, then spends 30 minutes helping you look for the phone that's in his pocket. Yeah, and then he's like, I don't know what happened to your phone. That's so weird, but I can help. And then he sells your phone on the black market is what happens. So we're doing a full 360 around here. We're not talking to these guards right now. At all. I have the pastor with me, which I think is fitting because our pastor also robs people. I don't know, maybe he doesn't, maybe that's rude. Maybe he doesn't rob people, but
Help! Someone's been killed!
Wait, what's going on? What's happening?
I think I'm gonna be sick.
What's going on? Pull yourself together. Tell me what happened.
I clean the apartments while everyone's at work.
Yeah?
I've seen all sorts of messes.
Yeah?
But this...
What?
If you're going into the apartments, do not go into the lower one on the right. That's where the body is.
So that's where I should go.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go contemplate a hot shower.
Are you going to tell the authorities? All right, so we're going to go into the lower right one and find out about this murder. Clearly. I mean... That's... Why wouldn't we, like... Sometimes I wonder about them. Like, I don't know... What do they think? Oh, hey, it's a tossball card. Don't go into this specific apartment. I left it open. Monarch Stellar. Oh. So, I was thinking about... Oh.
Murder? Hey, is this the part where we go hunting for clues?
This is the part where we go hunting
To die.
for clues. People. What happened to this person? Victim. Well, so, so this person looks, there's a lot of blood. Let's not, in a bit of a pattern here. We're gonna do our Dexter. A huge blood spatters. I'm thinking blunt force trauma, and the body might have been moved, or this person dragged themselves from point A to point B. So let's all, while we're looking for clues, let's also steal everything that's here. What I mean by that, I think what I mean is collecting evidence. Somebody's watching me and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel that somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? Grim, welcome into the foxhole. What are you doing? Also, hey, how are you? Hey, Grim, what's new? What is going on? It's nice to see you. It's good to have you here. This is certainly a discussion for session 0, Iffy. How deadly a campaign might be and expectations of how the game will be played. I also, but you know, this is Grimjack, I was just gonna say a gaming thing, which looks like this tenant checked out early. Yeah! We were talking about failing forward, and I wanted to say a gaming thing, and since you're here, you can hear it and say what you think about it as well. So one of these things is about, I think for me, the relationship to failure and what failure is and what we think about failure. So it's not seeing if they're dead, it's just taking your hair and it's, yeah, that's right. Would Ellie have been able to tell you more about the body? This is a good question. sounds like a lot like something I took great pains to point out for Simbarm Session 0. Death is on the table. There are rules for character death and making a new character. Yeah. So here's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about there's like with the idea of failing forward, right? There is a true, because I wouldn't call it failure so much as raising six. There is a philosophy that I have heard people say a lot, which is how they feel, and those are their feelings. So, you know, those are their feelings. And that is that failure is not fun because the game stops moving forward, right? That like when you fail, the game doesn't progress. And so failing is not fun. And this has then, of course, resulted in game design philosophies where, thank you, I'm not stealing, where you take failure out of the equation. So, for example, like in the Gumshoe games, you cannot fail to investigate. And they say they did that on purpose because it's no fun if you cannot find the one clue that will help you find the murderer, and if you, because you failed that one roll, so then therefore the game grinds to a halt and there's no progress in the game. Right, so there's that particular philosophy, and people will also say like it's no fun if there's a door and you rolled a lockpick and you can't get through the door, so the game grinds to a halt, and so therefore we have to make ways in which that is not possible. You cannot, failure should not be, you know, we have to like basically mitigate failure so so you don't ruin the game. It's forward momentum, right? So that instead of like you can right, like in Fate, if the person failed to pick the lock, I could say, hey, you could succeed at a major cost, which means they're going to get through the door anyway, but then something bad will happen or whatever. But this is interesting because this idea has at its base an idea of failure, of what failure is or not, right? So PH says, in last night's game, I pretended not to be able to find my head after I threw it at an ogre because I found it funny for our intellect devourer to be stuck in a cell in the body they took over. Grim says, completely agree. I don't do failure. I do success with consequences. And the thing is, I do failure. Like I do full on straight up failure because for me, I see failure differently, right? Like I don't think of, for me, it's a couple of things. One, I think that failure, like with failure comes growth. Like you learn from failure. And if you always succeed, that's not as satisfying for me. But for me, I do not believe, my philosophy does not involve failure means a game doesn't progress. Like that is very alien to my way of thinking. Or like I just don't think of games that way. Right? Like that's not like the idea that the story doesn't go forward because you failed a roll just doesn't work with how I run games. If I'm running a game that is kind of linear, then sure, then you have to do things like that. Like so, in a lot of like if you're running a module, there are different things going on there. I think the important thing is that scene can't be ground to a halt with a single failure. The scene has to continue. In my experience, your approach to your own PC's failure counts as RP opportunities. Yeah, right. If it's a game-stopping failure, I avoid those because what story stops if... Yeah, right. So this is where I'm at, sort of, Sal, right? Grim, like, what does that mean? Like, for me, I feel like I just would never design a game where that's the case. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like, okay. So for example, Sal says, the fight doesn't end just because the paladin fails to hit the lich. Why should the heist fail because of one lockpicking check? Right. And also for me, it's about opportunities for creativity. Game stopping failure seems like a fault of the campaign design. Yes, Jared, that's where I'm at, right? So the way that I think about things, if one die roll stops the campaign, then I don't like that's a thing, but that's not how I would do it. If he says, yeah, like that vintage module where if you can't get through the door, you die and have to go through the dungeon again. Yeah.
We ready to get moving?
Yeah, like that's not how I would design a thing, right? Like I was like, oh, because the thing is that feels very weird to me. It doesn't feel like real life at all, and it doesn't feel very interesting, right? Kulon, I'm gonna cook food after this. So for example, let's say we're running, I think this is like for me, an example of how I think about sort of failure. I also think there's a big difference between my character failing to do something and me failing to do something. My character failing does not mean that I fail, right? Like I really, like for me, that separation is important because, right? Like I might be having a grand old time even if my character is failing. Sal says, the campaign requires, if the campaign requires the players to get through a door, they're not going to possibly fail a lockpicking check on it. Yeah. I mean, I think about, so for example, let's say the players want to get through a door. Let's say there's a heavy wooden door and they want to get through the door. This is the thing they want to do for some reason. They are invested in this thing. And so the thief, it's a good medieval fantasy heavy wooden door with sort of like metal, like two metal bands and a lock, and in a wall, a good standard dungeon wall, you know, that's like what, 5 feet thick or whatever, and probably right. And the thief comes up and tries to pick the lock. There has been a half-hour game there totally has, probably. That is different, but in a group, one character has game-stopping failure, what now? They just watch the rest of the group. But what does game-stopping failure mean, right? For me, failure never stops the game keeps going because the game is what happens, right? The story, for me, is what happens. So, and this is because I don't tend to think, like I don't have a plot that I want the players to go through, right? So for me, because I do not have a plot that I want the players to go through, where I'm like, oh, here's the plot. Oh no, here's the story that they need to go through, and they failed this role. In order for the story to progress, they need to make this role. And if they fail this role, the story's not going to progress, and now we've got a game-stopping failure. I don't make stories that way. For me, the story is not what I am planning that then they go through. The story is what happens, right? The story is what happens, and I'm interested in finding out what happens. And so for me, there is no story ending role. The role becomes part of the story. Kulon, get food. Get food. Get food. Get food.
The scenery.
Grim says, I'm not a fan of one failure per obstacle. Some systems stress one or limited skill checks per scene or instance. Yeah, as long as a new imagined way to circumvent the obstacle continues, I'm all for rolls. Right. So for example, right, we're looking at that door. So the thief comes in, tries to pick the lock, gets a critical failure, breaks their tools off in the lock, and they are not going to pick that lock. There's that failure. They're not picking the lock. So does that mean that the story doesn't go on or that they can't get through the door? Not like, for me, that lockpick breaking off in that lock does not mean that the story's over or that they're never going to get through the door. What that means is they need to be more creative. They need to sort of start thinking of alternative routes. I heard a great quote, and I can't remember who said it, but it goes something like this, says Grimm. A railroad track can be blocked with one rock, but in a sandbox, a rock is just another toy. Yes. If he says, I mean, if I sign up for 4 hours to play a game and my character dies and there's no way for me to individually continue to participate, that's the game stopping. That's game stopping for me, but the game continues for everyone else. So this is interesting. That's interesting. That's if your character dies, right? Now, I have a thought about this as well, actually, and that's actually really interesting. I have 2 thoughts about that. But door first, because we're like staying in character. So if they cannot pick that lock, maybe the barbarian decides to hack the door down with its axe. Because there's more than one way to get through a door. picking the lock is only one. Maybe it's some hacking with axes. Maybe it's some fireball to the door, or a knock spell, or disintegrate. Or maybe they decide that they are going to go around and find if there's another way through that door. Or maybe they will turn into a small fly, go through crawl underneath the door, unturn themselves into a fly, and then just open the door from the inside. Maybe they will decide that they were not going to go through this door right now, and they will do something different instead. And that door will be this forever mystery that they are like, oh, what's through that door? And they go off and do something different. So like so all the characters are still playing, but what happens is like, well, they're different options. Kulan says, Rissa, I managed to get a bag of rice while seeing others having a rather loud argument over something else on the shelf. Only take what I need because I know others might not be able to take it. Yeah, see, Kulan, you're a good egg. You're a good egg. I will see. Have a good time, Falcon. Have sorcery away. Sorcery away. So then here's Bluebeard's Bride has things to do after your character dies. Fair. Disintegrating the door would hurt the tree the door's made from saplings. Oh.
So what's the plan?
Kulan says, it does for me. I can use it for bulk starch remains. Alchemist rice pudding. Ooh. I feel like you're a better cook than I am. Death is a brand new skill tree in Blaze in the Dark. Or maybe you don't ever make it through the door and you deal with a fallout for that, which can also be really interesting. Wizard cast stone to mud on the wall, right? Yeah, maybe you get through the wall instead. So there's like a... No. I'm totally, we're investigating. Like, see, investigations, it's totally happening. But here's the thing I was thinking about in terms of player death. There are two things about player death. And that partly has to do with what kind of player you are. The druid casts heat metal on the hinges metals, and yeah, right. So like, and here's the thing, as a GM, and this is important, as a GM, I never insist that my players solve the problem the only way that I'm thinking, right? So if you have a GM that only allows one solution to a problem and that's the one that they're thinking, then yeah, you can start having game-ending stuff. And also, they also want you to go through that one thing. If they're like, yeah, there's a door and the only thing you can do is get through that door, there's nothing else you can do, and now you failed the roll, so sad for you, ha ha ha. Okay, well then that's not gonna be great. But I don't, like, for me, there's a door. I don't know how they'll get through it or if they will, but that's okay because there are other things to do, right? Like there will always be other things to do and other ways to get through. And I'm open for whatever interesting way they try, and it may not work or it might, but that's interesting. And that becomes part of the story. And all of a sudden, Levi says, that's why I set up puzzles and I don't think about the solutions. Yeah, right? And I love setting up puzzles that I try to make sure I have a couple of, like, if I set up a puzzle, I'll think, well, what are ways? So I try to make sure I can think of some ways to get out of it, but I'm open for lots of different ways. So for example, right now, Regina is on the roof of this building, and there are Nazis coming into the building to search for where the wireless operator is. And I don't know how she's going to get out of this solution, but I'm excited to find out. I will say this though, trying to talk her way out of it is going to be very difficult because she's on the roof of the building. If she were in an apartment, she might be able to play it off, right? But being on the roof of this building is not going to be something that's going to be easily talked out of. Like, I don't know how possible that is going to be. It's possible, but that's not... being on the roof makes it easier for some things, but less good for others. But we'll see. Like, how tall is the building? It is a tall building, my friend, because she wanted a tall building so that she could get good reception. So we will see how this goes. We are going to see how this goes. But I'm open, and I don't know what she's going to pull out, and I'm really excited to see what she does, because I hope that she gets out of this well, but I don't know what is going to happen. right? Like it's interesting to me. Like, I'm excited to find out what she does. And whatever happens is going to be part of the game. Iffy, I'm going to come back to your thought, though. My dad was my first GM, says Sal. He's not the greatest of all GMs, but he still instilled this gamer instinct in me of never just opening the door. Because every time we were in a dungeon or whatever, we just opened the door, he would spontaneously decide that someone was doing Overwatch on the door, and the door was trapped or something. Does it have a fire escape? Probably not. Throw the wireless off the side of the roof and pretend to be cloud gazing. See, that one's gonna be hard because they know there's a radio. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not a spot check. They know there's a radio, and that's the tricky part. They know there's a radio in this area. So this is gonna be like, if she were walking down the street and she had a radio in her bag, she could easily talk her way out of it because they don't know there's a radio. But they know there's a radio. PH says, I ran a one-shot the other day, and the players hatched a plan to do something wholly unrelated to what I'd planned the one-shot to be about. I considered following them with it, but considering it was a one-shot, I wasn't confident if I could deliver something fun within the time constraints of that one session, so I nudged them back on track. Yeah, PH, one-shots are totally different than ongoing campaigns. One-shots, you have 4 hours, or 3 hours, you have a limited amount of time, and they're much more constrained. And players, I think, tend to be appreciative of that. Jer says, my D&D campaign could have been a city-centric war game instead of hunting for a solution for a terrible problem. Have they chosen different options? Oh, yeah, totally. I'm just cloud gazing with headphones on. Well, yes, and it could change the overall focus of the game to getting her out of prison, for example. Yes, right, that could be a thing. It might be get her out of prison before she's shipped off somewhere, and that would change the focus. And also it could also be about her trying to sort of maybe get herself out of prison or resist interrogation. So, right, there's a lot of things where that could happen. Luckily, Dot has, no, actually, it turns out only 1 week, because we were going to do a solo session next week because people were going to be missing, but coronavirus means that people are not going to be missing. So we have a full group session next week because Dot will be here next week, so we can actually do the full team, which is good. Yeah, so here's the thing. I should say something. So Rissa is the GM for the Call of Cthulhu game that I play in once a month, that I'm playing tomorrow. And our players fail all the time. Our players fail all the time in discovering my coronavirus. Or Regina dies and everyone deals with the fallout. Yeah, something will happen. It is hard to die in Fate. It is possible. It is possible. And I have implemented extra rules that will make it easier to die in Fate. But it is doable. I'm making it doable. But we will see. I mean, I'm worried about her. She should just not get into a gunfight with them, is really what should not happen. You know what I mean? I feel like talking about female agents. I'm like, yeah, right. I still haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to. There are 2 things I want to say. So many gaming things I want to say right now. It's crazy. Oh wait, several ragged outfits, all the same cut and color, were stuffed into this suitcase. Huh. Interesting. All right. See, by the way, did you notice that? We just got a clue. So I want to say 2 things at the same time. That is why is my life so hard? Why do I not have 4 mouths so I can say all the things simultaneously? What I would say is, I think about, oh yeah, I want to say 3 things now. Yeah, I'm like, our players fail all the time in finding out information, but like for me, the game is not over because it is still, we're still working things out, and we have to go things in different routes. Oh man, even if Regina does win the gunfight and survive, there's the hostage doctrine to contend with. Oh, Sal. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. That is true. I'm just going to point that one out. So, there are a lot of things going on. This betting slip has become lists some increasingly bold wagers made for a team called Mostly Colonists. It's from left field toss ball betting. Huh. Okay. So we've got some... Maybe somebody murdered them for their debt, but that's a lot of murder. We're going to check that one out. So look, I want to say 3 things. No, 2 things now. But if you said a thing that I really want to come back to, because I think this is really interesting about player death, and I want to get there because there's a thought I have about this. This person is asleep, but I bet if I stole things from them, they would wake up and then they would yell at me. So like, I'm not going to do that right now, even though I feel like that's unfair. Levi, I agree with you. If you kill people with their gambling debt, you'll never get your money. It's terrible. So look, I'm thinking about the cop game where we're playing like an RPG, and the players, there are 2 of them. They're both, it's like a buddy cop thing. One's like the no nonsense FBI agent, and the other one's the cop that doesn't play by the rules. And just check this out. Seriously, I'd never heard of the hostage doctrine until episode 1 of your Colas thing, and wow, that recontextualizes every French resistance story I've consumed. Yeah, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. And how do you, like, I'm just going to say, stuff's going to be happening. Stuff's going to be happening in the game. And I don't know what stuff's going to happen, but stuff's going to happen. I mean, you won't get their money, but everyone else who owes you money will have more money to pay up. That's also the case. So the thing is, if you're those 2 cops and the mission you're on is to find the murderer of this one particular thing, I think it's for the way that I play games and also run them, I think it's totally acceptable for the players not to be able to get the evidence to convict the murderer. I know that some people would say, oh, that's a failure, and the story ground to a halt, and it's a failure, and it's terrible, and oh, it's so awful, and like you should never let that happen. But for me, the idea that there's a killer out there that they didn't catch is a great story. Like, for me, that's not like a failure of the story to progress. It's great story because now they know that killer's out there, and maybe they'll manufacture evidence, fake evidence, to convict this person, even because they know the person did it, even though would they do that? But that's wrong. Oh, or they'll like be haunted by this person. And like Detective McGuffin and his new partner, Officer Faxman, right? And like, that's a really interesting story. And now we get to have their feels. Like, how do they feel about not like knowing that's the killer, but then they can't convict the killer? What do they do? Like, I'm so excited for Krellin. I'm totally gonna do it. That's really exciting for me, that part of the story. So then here's the last thing I'm gonna say before I go, because I don't want to miss this thought. It's about what something Iffy said about your character dying and then the player having nothing to do for 4 hours. This is the last thing. I'm going to read those 3 messages. I'm going to tell you the story because I will forget this. No, just we're out of here in 5 minutes. Mr. Nandi, sorry to bother you about this, but something foul is leaking from the apartment upstairs. I don't know what Celia is keeping up there, but she works for you, right? Do you think you could talk to her about it? Bodies. I rose. Isaac, can you please try to keep your windows shut? As I've tried to explain, leaving them open, especially when you've got food out, invites mantis swarms, and a mantis swarm infestation is everyone's problem. And then Behecht. Braxton, I know you keep odd hours. I know because I've heard you coming and going at all times of this day, night, haha, but maybe you could try to close your door a little more quietly? I'm rather sensitive nerves, and every time I hear your door, I think we're in the middle of another Amber Heights. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right, we're not going to steal this. We're going to set ourselves up so that we can do things later here. We're setting ourselves up for later. Save game. Because, right? Save. We got so much gaming done today, everybody. So, look. Right. Whatever. Sal says, there was a Rockstar game a few years ago set right after World War II called L.A. Noire, which I loved. I loved that game. Team Bondi, right? Where you were a detective, and during one of the cases where you're on the homicide desk, the game made me convict the wrong guy because the PC wanted to close the case. Oh, and it was so frustrating that I couldn't actually finish the case. Oh, that's frustrating. Yeah. Then he turns into this washed up brooding alcoholic that doesn't like to talk about that case. No, it turns out the very next case is connected, and everybody droods about getting the wrong guy. All right, so here's the last thing I want to say, because I think this is really important to think about. There are different kinds of players, right? There are players for whom not some of that case would be terrible for them, but there are players for whom not some of that case becomes an RP opportunity. I'm the RP opportunity person. So here's the thing. This is the thing I want to say about your character dying like a half hour in and then doing nothing for 4 hours. There are different kinds of players and there are different kinds of systems. In Fate, so first off, if I think a game is going to be high mortality and making characters takes a long time, I will often encourage players to make a backup character. Our players right now do not have backup characters. They should, but making a character in Fate is really fast. You can make one on the fly. So that's all right. Although they may not be in an emotional state. This is the thing. It depends. Like some people, if their character dies, which might be the case for all of our players for City of Light and Shadow, they may not be in an emotional space to continue playing. If their character dies, they may need some time to process. So they may want to just take time out and then having that time out might be important for them because a character they really cares about has just died, so they might need some time and space, so then that's fine. But there are some games, like with old school D&D, your character dies in the first 15 minutes, that's fine. Roll 3d6 6 times, make a new character. Just, like there's a... I told them that their characters could very well die, and they might want to think about a backup character. Oh yeah, and I told them in Night Witches that it's a really deadly game. They need to watch out because their characters could very easily die. So I mean, so there are some game systems where you can make up a new character on the fly real fast. And so if somebody's character dies, they can make a new one, like take 5-10 minutes, make a new one, and they're back in the game, no problem. There's some games where it's gonna be a problem, so they make a backup right away. So they make a backup before the game starts, so in case their character dies, they can bring in a new one right away. They might need a backstage reminder. They might need a backstage reminder that their characters can die. Oh, they know their characters can die. They know that. Roll Master for the win. I don't, I've told them. Yes, and so the last thing is, and this is the last, also, like, they don't have to make them, but I tell them to think about who they'd want to play. And one of the things that was a setup was that part of the reason why their cell is larger than themselves, that they could then make somebody else who's part of the bar or some other connector. So they do not have to make the backup character right now, partly because Fate is a fast system to make characters in. Like Fate is pretty fast character creation. You can make that just sort of in that moment. So that one is not, but like if it were GURPS or Rollmaster, I'd want them to make a backup character. Yes. So here's the last thing I wanted to say. This is the thing I wanted to get to. But there are also players for whom watching other people play is fun. Right? There are players for whom if their character dies or is held unconscious or are captured in some way, watching other players is still fun for them and they still feel like they're participating. And I'm that kind of player. Like my character can be sidelined for basically 3/4 of the entire episode and I can still have fun. And I won't feel bad or useless or terrible. I mean, I have made characters that have almost no useful skills for the entire group, and I still have a good time. We had a guy we played with who, after his schedule changed and he couldn't come anymore, would occasionally just show up just to watch. Yeah, and there are different kinds of players, and like it's important to know what kind of player you are. Are you a player who can be a good audience member to your fellow players? And there are players who cannot, and there are players who can. so in City of Light and Shadow last night, a lot of the characters are doing sort of solo things or like little group things, so that some players are off screen while other players are on. And so I keep trying to make sure it switches around so nobody's off screen for too long. But I have that is a group of players who are comfortable watching other people. So that depends. So that's it. We're going. I'm gonna cook food. I'm cooking food, everybody. Technically, I'm not cooking food. Technically, I'm here. But this is it. We're done with the stream. Stream's done. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm Trooper SJP. I appreciate you all reminding me to cook. I'm going to go and cook. If he has more thoughts, and I want to share those thoughts too. I want all the thoughts about on-screen versus off-screen, spotlight versus not spotlight. Like, do you feel comfortable sitting and watching? Do you not? Like, what is the game like? What kind of game is it? Some games I think that would not at all be fun. Some it would be. So, thank you all for being here. What's next for me? Tomorrow at 10 p.m. on Polished Cryptid's channel, I will be guesting in their talk show, Tavern Talks. So that's like an hour or so of Tavern Talks tomorrow night at 10 p.m. on Polished Cryptid. So that's my last thing for the week. And next week is I'm going to be Prax. I can never pronounce her full screen name because it's really long. It's like Praximanthagorius's channel. I'm gonna put it on there. So next week, Tuesday at 11 p.m. will be a staged reading of Othello that I'm going to be in. I'll be Othello. So if you want to see a stage reading of some Shakespeare, 11 a.m. Eastern time. That'll be happening on Tuesday, and then Wednesday is Witcher, Tales from the Grim at 8. At 8. Thursday is More Telling Lies, which is blowing my mind and I cannot handle it, at 6 on my channel. And Friday is City of Light and Shadow at 7 on my channel. And then Saturday, more The Outer Worlds. Oh, good. Oh, wait. Here's what we're going to do. Is Krellin, is Cheryl Animal Crossing right now? Is Cheryl Animal Crossing right now? This moment? Because if she is, you know what that means. That means we can raid. Oh, she's not live. Oh, I see. So I cannot raid her. Oh, well, that's a bummer. But you know what? We can raid somebody. We've not raided anybody in a while. That'll make me feel better. So who are we going to raid? We're going to raid... oh, hey, let's raid Pumpkinberry. We're going to raid Pumpkinberry. Pumpkinberry's awesome. So this is our raid command. Let's just give her a little raid and say hi. Because, you know, I want Nightbot to be able to play... I want Nightbot. We're going to work it out, Nightbot. We'll work it out. So thank you all. That's my schedule. I'll update everything, all the goodness. And there's going to be goodness going on. That's it. So thank you for being here. Oh, I should do that thing that I do. I've got socials. If you want to follow, give a follow. You are certainly welcome to follow if you like. You can also subscribe if you like. I've got a Discord. Come to the Discord. We can talk more about RPGs. YouTube is the archive of all of my shows, unless they cancel my YouTube account. That's on Trooper SJP. You can find me at Academic Foxhole on Twitter, and you can also go to my Patreon, Academic Foxhole, where that is going to fund my RPG shows, and that is that's what's going on. So we're gonna go and raid the Pumpkinberry. We're gonna do that. Start raid. Yes, because Pumpkinberry is pretty awesome, and we're doing it. We're going to start the raid. We're starting the raid. So everyone, thank you for being here. You are all the best. I appreciate everybody in the foxhole. We're going to do the raid, and then I'm going to cook. That is what it is. All right, everybody. I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye, everybody. Raid! Raid!